Come with me if you want to live.
Are you not entertained? Is that why you are here?
This is it. Don't get scared.
Welcome back to a brand new Flick Pick live show. This is it. Don't get scared now. And how are you guys doing? Thank you so much for joining me on this magical and mystical Sunday evening. But there was just so much to talk about that that's the reason that the live show didn't happen Friday. Just too much is going on. But we're here now, so I hope you have a big bucket of popcorn or maybe a delicious, salty, juicy, wet pickle. For some odd reason, that sounds sort of delicious right now. But without further ado, let's dive into the movie topics. And then, as soon as we're done with those topics, please feel free to submit your questions or your topics that you guys want to talk about right now. And the first main topic we're going to talk about today is a brand new Netflix movie that just came out. It's Happy Gilmore 2. So let's talk about the movie. What do you say? We could lay by the bay, make things out of clay. We just may. I'll shut up now and talk about this newest Netflix movie of the week. Now, when it comes to Happy Gilmore from 1996, it is probably one of my favorite Adam Sandler movies of all time and easily my favorite 1990s Adam Sandler movie. And I still think it holds up to today. It's one of those slapstick comedies that just works. It's simple, it gets the job done, you're in, you're out, and it's a fun time. So I was sort of looking forward to the new Netflix sequel, Happy Gilmore 2. But when it comes to legacy comedy sequels, over the years, we've never really had a good one. Have we? And if we have, please let me know which legacy comedy sequel that you liked and thought was really good. I'd love to know. We've had movies like Anchorman 2, Grown Ups 2, Zoolander 2, Dumb and Dumber 2, and Dumb and Dumber, which was even worse than everything I just said. But I was still sort of looking forward to this new Happy Gilmore movie. And what is the plot to this movie? And keep in mind, this is a Happy Gilmore movie, so I might be talking about some spoilers. If you haven't seen the movie, you might want to put your earmuffs on for a few seconds, but keep in mind, it's a Happy Gilmore movie. So anything I say doesn't really spoil the movie or probably ruin the experience. If anything, I'll probably talk you out of watching the movie, which would save you 2 hours, because there's a lot of other things you can do in life with those 2 hours that'll be much more enjoyable and probably... Well, we'll get there. We'll get there. So what is the plot to this new movie? Well, Happy Gilmore, within the first 5 minutes of this new film, accidentally kills his wife with a line drive golf ball. So she's dead within the first 5 minutes. And then the tone of the movie radically shifts into becoming sort of gloomy and slightly depressing. You no longer have that underdog with a heart of gold story like in the original 96 movie. Nah, Happy's sort of depressed in life, and then he loses everything. Because why? Well, according to the movie logic, his wife was the one who balanced the checkbook and paid all the bills. So once he murdered her, he loses all of his money. I don't know why they never hired an accountant. I don't know, call me crazy, but they never did. So that happens all within the first 5 minutes of the film. And the main driving force here is he's no longer trying to save his grandmother's house. He now needs $300,000. That way he can send his daughter to some art school somewhere so she can get a degree in the fine arts. Here's my advice to you, Happy. Just get an online education. for some arts degree, because she's never going to find a job with that degree anyway. So it's ultimately all a waste of time. And really, when I step back and think about this new Happy Gilmore movie, it sort of reminded me of Rocky V. Arguably and objectively, probably the worst Rocky movie of all time. It's the one where he goes broke, he loses all of his money, he moves back to Philadelphia, he's living in the slums. That's exactly sort of the outline to the new Happy Gilmore movie. But unfortunately, it doesn't end in a street fight. It ends in a golfing tournament. And what is that new golfing tournament? Well, there's a new golf league called the Maxi League. I think that's what it's called. And what this is it's a new extreme golf league that makes golfing more entertaining for a new generation of people, because no one's watching golf anymore. And I can honestly say I've never watched more than 4 minutes of golf. The most exposure I ever had to golfing was probably Happy Gilmore, and that's the truth. But when it comes to this new golf league, it's extreme. It's over the top. Everything they do is just a little weird and wacky. But I will say this is probably one of two positives I'm going to say about Happy Gilmore 2. I did sort of enjoy the final golf sequence in this movie. I'm not saying it's great, but what I am saying is it's sort of entertaining in the way that it's shown, because the final hole in this movie it's on this platform that needs to be balanced. And I thought that was sort of fun. It was almost something that you would see in, I don't know, something like Squid Games, but with less death. But then again, maybe that would have added to the movie. But I sort of enjoyed that last hole that they have to make the ball in, because it's this platform that moves back and forth. You can stand on it. So there was a lot of interesting things with that. I think that was the most interesting concept that they had in the movie. I think there was more they could have done with the final showdown in the film, especially when you have this wacky, weird golf league. But really, that was like the weirdest thing they do. So I don't know. But as far as like the tone of the movie and the vibe of it definitely felt a bit more watered down than the 1996 movie. It had that Grown Ups 2 humor, which I get where they're coming from. They wanted to make the most family-friendly, wacky, live-action cartoon version of this movie they could. That way, when everyone's watching it on Netflix, and by watching it on Netflix, I mean it's background noise as you scroll on TikTok. And I feel like most people who say this movie's good, I feel like that's the way they consumed this movie. It was just background noise as they did something else, and they went, oh, that was mildly entertaining. But it wasn't. I think it was sort of a waste of money. But I will say this. The biggest positive I can give Happy Gilmore 2 is I enjoyed seeing Happy Gilmore come back, even though it didn't really feel like the character at times. But I will say I did laugh my ass off probably a handful of times throughout this movie. And most of those scenes that made me laugh were just outrageous sequences that popped up out of nowhere. And it was almost shock humor. And once again, there is going to be a few spoilers in this review, but I promise you it won't affect your experience if you do go to decide to watch the movie. There is one scene early on in the movie where they're driving a golf cart and it just jumps over something, crash lands, and blows up. And it was the most obscene thing I've ever seen, but I laughed. Now, is that cheap humor? Yes, it is. But did it get the trick done? Yes, it did. There's also another scene, and I think this is a good point that we talk about this. This film doesn't really feel like a film. It feels like an SNL sketch with a whole bunch of guest cameo appearances in it that just keeps going and going and going and going. And then 2 hours later, that SNL sketch finally concludes and you're sort of tired. The jokes ran cold by the halfway point and you no longer care about anything that's happening in the movie because it doesn't really feel like a movie. It just feels like random scenes from random celebrities. And half of these celebrities, maybe I'm just getting old. I didn't know who half of these people were. Now, there are some golf pros like Jack Nicholson, who's a famous golfer. I think Guy Fieri's in the movie. I don't know why. And then there's one big cameo that everyone on Facebook's talking about. And Eminem shows up for a cameo in this movie. Cool. But he plays the new incarnation of the guy who said, "Jackass." That's what he does. And then he's immediately eaten by alligators. And I kind of laughed at that scene as well, because he's randomly being eaten by alligators. How could you not laugh at that? Another thing I want to talk about is the way that this movie looks. Now, I know this is a Happy Gilmore movie on Netflix. I'm not going to hold this movie. I don't think this should look like Interstellar. I don't think it should look like Christopher Nolan directed the movie. I'm not saying any of that. But what I am saying is I just hate the way that this movie looks. Now, if you look at it right here, this film was shot with digital cameras. And what they did is they shot this in a log style look. And what that means is they shot a very flat look of the film. And then they went back in post-production and they added a whole bunch of saturation to it. And I think it looks hideous. I think this looks atrocious. This doesn't look like a real movie. This looks like it was shot on an iPhone, even though they probably used $35,000 cameras. And if you look at it right here, like, look how overly saturated this looks, but also it looks gloomy at the same time. Look how blown out all of the white is in the background. Look at the sky. It's just gloomy and gray. And then you have the grass that's so cranked up with oversaturation, it looks like a filter that you would have found on Snapchat in 2012. I just think it looks hideous. It looks like vomit. And I do not like the way this movie looked. It did not look like a real movie. And I don't know what it is, but throughout the entire course of this entire movie, everything shot outdoors looked like it was shot on a gloomy day right before or right after it rained. And I should have brought this up earlier. I'll bring it up here. Let's find the original Happy Gilmore trailer. And I want to show you guys just the difference here. Now, when you look at the original movie, which was actually shot on film, it has like this sunny look to it. Like everything outdoors was shot during the summertime. It's just fun to look at. Come on, here we go. Look at that warmth. Look at the warmth and the glow to the movie. It just looks like it's real. It doesn't look like it's artificially made with AI or something. It's not overly saturated. And to me, that just makes it feel like a real movie. It doesn't feel like some product that was made digitally. I know this is just, once again, a Happy Gilmore movie, and maybe I'm holding it to a high standard, but I wanted this movie to be good. I did. And for me, this is just nonsensical content crapped out from Netflix to watch once, and you'll probably never watch it again because there is no rewatchability to this movie. And the main driving force behind that is because all this movie does is it takes every single joke and every single character from the first film and either recast them or brings them back for this new movie. And what it does is, before it makes a joke or right after it makes a joke, it always shows a flashback from that original movie. No matter how minor the scene was or how stupid it was, the movie treats you like you're a troglodyte. It treats you like you've never seen the original movie. And if you haven't seen the original movie, that's fine. But I don't think it was completely necessary to show you a flashback every 5 minutes throughout this film about that one random scene in the previous movie 30 years ago. It was like winking at the camera way too many times, and it took me out of it. Those flashbacks either undermined the jokes or immediately made the joke not funny anymore because it was just blatantly obvious of what they were doing. It sort of reminded me of Cobra Kai, and I'll give Cobra Kai a pass on the nostalgia flashbacks because I think it works for like a TV series like Cobra Kai, especially when you go 8 seasons and it's just sort of the same exact plot over and over again. It's like these two dudes who can't get along, but, you know, Cobra Kai, that's why. But in this, it just cheapened it for me. And I did not like the overuse of flashbacks. But I also didn't like the overuse of just random characters existing throughout this film. It was too bloated. This movie's 2 hours long. And keep in mind, when it comes to a comedy movie, you should be 90 minutes. You're in, you're out, it's funny, it doesn't take too much out of you, it doesn't waste your time. This film just keeps going and going. And halfway through the film, there is one tournament where Happy is trying to get on this team to go against the bad guys of the film in the Maxi Golf League. And to me, it almost felt like that should have been like the third act of the movie. I was like, okay, it's almost done. And then I checked the runtime, and the movie still had an hour left, and I could not believe it. So yeah, there's too many cameos. And then the other thing that this movie does, and Adam Sandler typically does this in all of his movies, and I get it. Hey, if I was Adam Sandler and I had $100 million and Netflix gave me a $250 million movie deal where I could just crap out 5 or 6 terrible movies, and then put my friends and my family in the movies, why would you say no to that? I get it completely. But in this film, there are 2 characters played by Adam Sandler's real-life daughters, and one of the characters is actually his daughter in the movie, which I guess that makes sense, right? But the other character that his other daughter plays is this girl that attends AA meetings with him, because that's a very important plot point I forgot to mention. Adam Sandler in this movie is an alcoholic because, once again, he did kill his wife. So the movie's sort of depressing. But one of these girls in his AA meeting is played by his own daughter. And it feels like there's this really weird forced relationship between these 2 characters where she's always randomly texting him, "Hey, Happy, good luck with your tournament. Keep up the good work." And she looks like she's 16 years old. And I'm like, what are you doing texting this 58-year-old dude? It's like his own family should be doing that. But the only reason they put it in this movie was because his own daughter got some more screen time. Nepotism, it's a thing. And I get it once again. If I was rich, if I was a movie star and I could put my own family in my own movie, I would probably do it. So I won't talk shit too hard. I'm just saying it was one of those characters that felt forced into the movie that shouldn't have been there. And also another character I want to talk about from the previous film was the character, I think it's Hal. And the character Hal is played by Ben Stiller, who in the original film played a dude that worked at a nursing home that basically turned all the residents into slave labor to make quilts, because he gets off on like forcing people to do manual labor. That's his thing. And in this new movie, Ben Stiller's character runs the AA meetings. And anytime someone messes up, well, he forces them to do manual labor. And for me, had that just been like a one sequence thing, I get the humor there, but it's a literal subplot in the movie. And it wasn't funny after like the 4th time you see it. And if you guys have thoughts on the movie, please share down below. We'll chime into it. But overall, this is just one movie that, unfortunately, I don't think I could ever watch again. Because why would you? All it does is try to copy and paste what the original movie did, and it crams more crap into it that makes it less funny. And I just wasn't a big fan of the movie. I did not like it. The vibe felt wrong to me. The tone was off. And once again, I did laugh a handful of times throughout this movie, but it was all just like abrupt humor. It wasn't because like the joke was funny. It's just because they randomly cut to the most obscene Family Guy cut sequence that they can. And it's so absurd that you have to laugh at it. So those are my quick thoughts on Happy Gilmore 2. I wanted to love it, but I just couldn't. And also, originally, they did have a different script to this movie with Chubbs, and unfortunately Carl Weathers passed away, so they sort of had to scrap that original script. And then you do get a new incarnation of Chubbs, and I think it's played by like his nephew or his son or his somebody, and it just wasn't the same. But I will say this, his character also does have a wooden hand, but the wooden hand this time around is even more obscene than it was in the first film, which, keep in mind, that wooden hand the first time around was like this long. This time it's like this long. It's just dangling out of his sleeve by 3 feet. So I thought that was kind of fun. But overall, this is sort of just a depressing rehash that overstays its welcome. And if you liked the movie, please let me know why you liked it. I'd love to know in the comments section. So those are my quick thoughts on Happy Gilmore 2. And now let's talk about it. And then in a few minutes, we'll dive into the spoiler talk when it comes to Fantastic Four, because I cannot wait to talk about that movie. All right, so what did you guys have to say about the new Happy Gilmore? Let's see. Blu-ray Addict says, I think we might be getting Grown Ups 3 and Wedding Singer 2. I have heard that. I think they did greenlight The Wedding Singer 2, which is also another one of my favorite Adam Sandler movies from 1998. I really enjoyed that movie as well. I remember seeing that in theaters. But if it's a Netflix rendition of it, I don't think it's probably going to be what we want to see. It's just going to be a slew of random celebrity cameos. The next one comes from also Blu-ray Addict. Happy Gilmore 2 kind of reminded me of Clerks 3. It did in a way, and I agree with you. It tries to go darker and more bleak and slightly depressing while giving you what the original had to offer at times. But when you set the tone up to already make it depressing and bleak, it's like, okay, now you murdered your wife. Now I'm supposed to laugh for the next 2 hours. It's like, oh, and you're an alcoholic. Oh, and you're attending AA meetings. Okay. Oh, funny. Eminem was eaten by alligators. What a hoot. It's like, what were they thinking with the tone of this movie? It's completely all over the place. All right. The next one comes from... You guys have a lot of questions in here. I think I should almost just dive into it. I thought the Eminem cameo was funny. Yeah, at first, for like the first 2 minutes of it, I did not even know that was Eminem. It was not until he was being eaten alive by alligators did I pick up on that being Eminem. So, all right. The next one comes from... And you guys are killing it with the questions. Let me hang on 1 second. Trying to figure something out here. It's getting a little laggy. Okay, here we go. Let's see. Scroll back. Okay, here we go. All right. All right, let's answer some of these super chat questions that we got a few minutes ago. And if you guys have more thoughts on Happy Gilmore 2, please chime in. Clerks 3 is a 6.2 easy. Happy Gilmore 2, more like Sandler, no more. Bad Billy Madison impression. He called the shit poop. Chlorophyll, more like Borophyll. James Dozier says, I think legacy sequels are just not very good. For some odd reason, they just can't make good comedy sequels. Maybe it's the Joe Kranitz course in the first time. I don't know. All right. So here's, you got a few super chats here. The first one comes from Patrice Chaswick, who says, car collection is full size. DB5 and 89 Batmobile are going to take some time. Start with DeLorean and Fast and Furious. What are we talking about? The car collection? The only car collection I have is an Aston Martin right here. That's my car collection. And I have a Jurassic Park Jeep back there on the shelf. That's my car collection, man. That's the poor man's car collection. But thank you for the super chat. And as per usual, everyone who leaves a super chat, $10 or over, as a gift back to you, you get a party popper. So thank you for the support, Chaswick. Here you go. 3, 2, 1. Don't get scared now. All right. After I'm done doing the live shows, the Flick Cave smells like gunpowder. I like it, kind of. All right. Let's go to the next one here. And the next one comes from James Dozier, who says, hello, John. Hope you are having a great Sunday. I'm having a pretty good Sunday. No big complaints. Just a little overwhelmed. A lot of things going on. And I hope you guys are having a great Sunday, too. But I'll tell you what made Sunday even greater. It's sitting here talking to all of you glorious people about movies and other random stuff. So, once again, if you guys don't have a cold beverage, 3 ice cubes, no more, no less, please go grab that right now. Or something salty and cold to eat. If it were up to me, I would have a delicious spicy dill pickle. But that's just me. All right. The next one comes from, let's scroll back here. JD Forever King says, I was watching Back to the Future 2 today. John, is Biff Tannen your dad? Why don't you make like a tree and get out of here, butthead? I don't know, probably. There's probably like a 10% likelihood Biff Tannen might be my real father, but thank you for that. Thank you. I've heard that for the last 15 years on YouTube. Jake Tammin says, finally, a Marvel film that's earnest and played it straight. Yeah, I think now might be a good time to talk about Fantastic Four. What do you guys say? And I do see all of your questions here, and I will get to every single question. So thank you guys so much. Keep bringing the questions in. We're going to get to every single one of them. But real quick, I think we should talk about a movie that I watched last week that I quite enjoyed. And that's a little movie. As I scroll up to find some of my notes, here it goes. Let's talk about Fantastic Four. Now, I am going to dive into spoilers, so this will be a spoiler discussion. So if you haven't seen the movie yet, you might want to come back in a few minutes. But when it comes to Fantastic Four, it's been a while, especially when it comes to the MCU, where we just got a straightforward adaptation of a comic book that was done well and it respected the characters, where they didn't try to interject a whole bunch of other crap in the MCU with a billion cameos and cutscenes and characters. And I liked how straightforward this story was. It was pure. It was cinematic. And most importantly, and I've been saying it for years, compelling characters can carry any story. As long as you give me interesting characters that I like, that have charisma, and you combine that into a story that might even be just serviceable at best. And I will say the story in this movie is more than serviceable. It's very authentic to the comic books of Fantastic Four. You're going to have a great movie. And I think this movie did that right. Now, is this a perfect movie? Is this in my top 10 comic book movies of all time? No, probably not. But it was a nice change of pace from the current incarnation of the MCU, which for me, since COVID, since post-Endgame, was sort of on a downward spiral. And don't get me wrong, there was a few good movies throughout. Spider-Man No Way Home, Shang-Chi was fine. There's a few other decent movies throughout. I know a lot of people liked Thunderbolts. I recently just went back and rewatched Thunderbolts. My wife had never seen the movie, and I thought it was fine. But after watching it the second time, I feel like I could probably go another decade without watching it. Because when you have the entire MCU, it's like, oh, you want to watch Thunderbolts? Out of all the movies, I don't know if I'd say that again anytime soon. But getting back to my point, when it comes to Fantastic Four, this was sort of like a breath of fresh air for me. And I loved the way that this movie looked, and I loved the tone of this movie. And I put this in my review, so if you don't want spoilers, go watch my review I put out on the Flickpick channel, my main channel, a couple days ago, where I talk about the movie for 13 minutes. But when it comes to the look and the tone and the vibe and the atmosphere of this Fantastic Four movie, I think they got it exactly right. Now, keep in mind, this is a digital film, but they shot this with Arri Alexa 65 cameras, Panavision cameras, and what they did is they tried to get that original filmic look back into the film. And it looks like it. It's soft, but it has this depth to it and this contrast. It doesn't just look like oversaturated crap slung at the screen, and it doesn't look like this washed out gray concrete color grading of a movie. It doesn't look like every other MCU movie. It looks like its own thing that exists in its own universe. And keep in mind, the movie itself does exist in its own universe. You're on a different version of Earth. And after watching this new movie, I want every single MCU movie to have its own look and tone to separate itself. I'm not saying they can't be interconnected, but what I'm saying is, for example, when it comes to the upcoming X-Men movies, those movies should be set in a different time period on a different Earth. And keep in mind, when it comes to X-Men, they have a very 1980s, 1990s vibe that works so well with X-Men. Go back to the animated X-Men series. That's the time period that these movies should exist in, and that's the vibe and look that they should have. Imagine a 1980s or 1990s vibe in an X-Men movie. Like, imagine like a 1990s action movie, but with the X-Men in it. That's the atmosphere I would like to see in that universe. Will we get that? I'm not quite sure, but I would like to see it. Exactly what they did with the Fantastic Four. And the retro futuristic aesthetics that you see throughout this film, just beautiful. And the other thing that I like so much about that is In Fantastic Four, you do have Reed Richards, who has the ability to go faster than light speed. He has a rocket ship. They have all this technology. They can transport things. He has the science to do unspeakable things, but yet they don't have smartphones and they don't have social media. And when I was watching the movie, I was thinking to myself, that is the version of Earth I would like to live in. That looks so peaceful. Like, even the society that exists in Fantastic Four, they're just more likable. Like, people are coming together to find a solution, and they're on board to save humanity. You know, I liked that. I liked that unison between society. And I just thought it was almost beautiful. And I wish we could live in a society that was that peaceful. Though I will say at one point, society does say, why don't you take little Franklin and give him to Galactus? Screw that baby. I want to live. And, you know, in all fairness, though, hey, listen, if it's one little baby that we have to feed to the devourer of planets, this cosmic god, for everyone else to exist peacefully, I think that's a small price to pay. I'm just putting it out there. But then again, as Captain America says, we don't trade lives. So you got to have a moral compass to some degree. But I also will say this, and we're going to dive into all the characters, but when it came to Pedro Pascal in this movie, who's Reed Richards, and keep in mind, Reed Richards in any of the previous incarnations of Fantastic Four movies, and there have been a lot of bad ones, and come to think about it, there's never been a good one until this new one. But have you guys ever seen the 1994 Fantastic Four movie? It's an abomination against humanity and simply exists. The only reason that movie was made was to retain the film rights to the Fantastic Four. So they crapped out this $1 million movie that literally looks like it was shot for $5 in a pack of chewed up bubble gum. I feel like you could make a better film in like my garage with a green screen. But anyway, it's terrible. And then in the early 2000s, in 2005 and 2007, we got a couple more Fantastic Four films, which the first one I just recently went back and rewatched. And keep in mind, I get if you like it, you have like a guilty pleasure love for it. But in 2005, you got Fantastic Four, which just feels like the most commercial, lazy attempt at a Fantastic Four film. And then you got other movies like Batman Begins. And for me, the contrast there is almost like it's painful when you compare the two. You know, it's just this soulless comic book movie, and then you have like a real movie. But anyway, I do sort of have a guilty pleasure love for Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer. And we'll talk about Julia Garner's version of the Silver Surfer in just one second. But anyway, when it comes to Reed Richards in this film, he's so logical. There's almost one point where he was almost willing to give up his son, Franklin Richards, at one point. And it doesn't explicitly say that, but that's the vibe I was getting. Like, he was considering it. And from a logical approach, it does make sense, just putting it out there. So there's that. But as far as the plot goes, you basically have Galactus coming to Earth. And for me, this sort of felt like a disaster movie. Like, go watch something like Deep Impact, which is sort of a thinking man disaster movie where you know you have this impending doom upon you. You have this asteroid coming to Earth and it's going to destroy all of humanity, but there's maybe a scientific solution to that. And that's sort of the way I took this new Fantastic Four movie, was Reed Richards basically had to science the shit out of this to figure out a solution, and I liked that. I liked that it wasn't just meaningless action scenes of the good guys punching bad guys for 2 hours with crappy CGI. I liked that the film was more scientific. And that's exactly what the Fantastic Four should be. And I like that we got that. And that's a lot of people's biggest complaint with this movie. There's not enough action. I think the action that you do get in this movie was more than sufficient, and it mattered more. And keep in mind, the entire third act of the movie is a giant cosmic god who's basically the size of a kaiju tearing the shit out of New York City as they try to transport him away to another galaxy. So that's the entire third act. So it's very fulfilling if you want action. The other thing I liked about this movie was, let's talk about a few action scenes I liked. Now, outside of the third act of the movie, where you have Galactus, who, by the way, actually looks like Galactus, and hang on a second.
I am hunger. I am Galactus.
The actor that they had play Galactus, what's his name? Did I have it written? Galactus, Ralph Ineson. They actually put him in a practical Galactus suit for some of the shots. And I appreciate that. He wasn't just CGI guy running around stomping the city, though technically at most points he was. Galactus looked like Galactus. And when they first encounter him, when they go into space and they go into his ship and they first meet him, there was this eeriness, this vibe that I quite enjoyed. And I thought it was awesome. And I like Galactus's technology where he like scans the room and he can see things. I like the way that was like showcased up on the big screen. But when it comes to all the other characters in the film, you had, we talked about Pedro Pascal, which, by the way, I think this is like the 47th movie Pedro Pascal has been in this month. A lot of people were sort of questioning the casting decision of him. I thought he was fine. I did. And I'm not trying to defend Pedro Pascal. I don't care, but I just thought by the end of this film, I bought him as Reed Richards. He's very conflicted. It feels like he has a lot on his mind. He always feels stressed out, and he's trying to play this part of being a husband and a father and also a scientist. And I bought into the conflict that he was having internally. I enjoyed that. I did. Then you had Sue Storm, played by Vanessa Kirby. And for me, I really was blown away by her take on Sue Storm. Sue Storm was never one of my favorite characters, but she sort of made me respect the character a bit more, especially when it comes to the third act of this movie. There's a great scene where Galactus is basically winning this fight. And he's going to take little Franklin Richards, who is this god amongst gods, who can just imagine the cosmos and do whatever he can. He's basically very overpowered, okay? But I'm curious to see what the MCU does with that character. But when it comes to that character, when Galactus is basically going to take this small child, who, by the way, Galactus sort of reminded me of the bad guy from Ghostbusters 2, Vigo the Carpathian. He just wants to kidnap small children for his own needs and wants and desires. Anyway, there's one point where Sue Storm utilizes her powers to the point where it kills her. And the only thing she's doing in this scene, and in this entire scene where the Fantastic Four go up against Galactus, is they're just trying to get him to one point, because they know they can't ultimately win this fight. But if they can get him to one point to shove him through this portal into another galaxy so he can't fuck with anyone for another million years or whatever, that's all they need to do. So what she does is she uses her force field powers just to nudge him back, and that kills her. But I liked that scene because she is a mother, you know, she's trying to protect her child, and she sort of sacrifices her life to do it. And it's like that old saying that you might have heard of where, like, I don't know if you guys have ever heard this story. It might get a little dark and morbid for about 2 seconds, but it's the story of a small child being trapped under a car after a car accident, where the mother's adrenaline kicks in so high that she can lift the car up off the child. And that's sort of the vibe I got from this. And I liked it. I like that made me like the character Sue Storm more than I ever have. So I just like little things like that. And then of course you have the entire team sort of all doing their part. And then you had Johnny Storm in the film, played by Joseph Quinn, who played Eddie in Stranger Things. And I thought he made a really good 1960s Johnny Storm. I really did. He wasn't overbearing. He's charismatic, he's funny, he has a little douchebagginess to him at times, but he is the comedic relief. And ultimately, at the end of the movie, it does showcase that he has a heart of gold. When he's like, tell little Franklin that his Uncle Johnny loves him, and he's about to sacrifice himself for the game-winning touchdown. And I liked that moment. And also, the Human Torch in this film I thought looked awesome. He also has sort of like this crush on the Silver Surfer. And in my review, I alluded to the fact that having a female version of the Silver Surfer did sort of make sense. And I think that played into it also. But also having the female version of the Silver Surfer, I think when it comes to saving humanity and that small child, I think they wanted to go with like the motherly instinctual vibe. And I think that's why they did it. And then you had Ben Grimm, who plays the Thing. And I quite enjoyed this portrayal of the Thing. And even when you go back to the 2005, 2007 movie, where the Thing ultimately is dealing with body dysmorphia issues, because keep in mind, everyone else in the Fantastic Four can like live a normal life to some degree. But when you're a giant rock man, like imagine wiping your ass. Imagine doing anything. How could you ever get comfortable? I don't know. I could not imagine the agony that he has to live in. But I like that he's walking through his old neighborhood and little kids are saying, lift up the car, and he does it. I like the little things like that. And he has been referred to as the foundation of this team. And he is sort of the most level-headed one of the entire team. He's always stepping back and sort of gauging how people are feeling and what they're doing, and he connects all of them together. So not only is he made out of stone, he is physically like the stone foundation that holds the team together. So I see what they're doing there. But when it comes to the action scenes, especially when it comes to the Galactus fight sequence, he throws a giant crane at Galactus. He brings down a building. So he's doing the most he can. But ultimately, the Thing doesn't have that much to do. like other than drive the spaceship at one point in the film, like that's the biggest contribution I think he has. And I'm not crapping on him. I'm just saying, like, when you watch the movie, then again, Mr. Fantastic just stretches a lot. So sort of a lame power to have. But when it comes to Mr. Fantastic, his I think most of his ability comes from his mind, not so much just stretching. But then again, if I could stretch the length of 2 football fields, I think I would. Anyway, we'll just leave it there. I'm just saying I could have a good time. That's all I'm saying. And then we already talked about Franklin Richards. Now let's talk about the Silver Surfer. Shala Ball, played by Julia Garner. And I thought this interpretation of the Silver Surfer was fine. I didn't have any complaints with it. I like Norrin Rad. I think he has better muscle definition and amazing trapezius muscles. And I think that was the best thing about the 2007 movie, but I thought she was fine. She doesn't get a lot of screen time, and that's another big complaint I've heard on the internet is a lot of these characters don't get enough screen time. But then again, when you have the Fantastic Four, you already have an ensemble cast of characters, and I think they get enough screen time to care about. So all these secondary characters, maybe in another movie, another installment, will get more time. A few key action sequences or moments that stood out to me. I did like the Galactus fight scene. I thought that was awesome. And when it comes to Galactus, when he first gets to Earth, he takes a scoop of dirt and he goes, and he sniffs it like it's like, I was going to say, like a drug of sorts. Like he loves the smell of soil because he's going to consume it. And I liked that. Also, he refers to human beings as little bugs. So I like that he's just toying with people. I thought that was pretty interesting. But there's one action scene halfway through this film where the Fantastic Four do go to space and they're trying to escape Galactus and the Silver Surfer. And there's this light speed chase sequence. And I thought that was a really cool sequence because during this, a lot of chaotic shit is happening. Sue Storm is giving birth to Franklin. The Silver Surfer's hot on their trail, and they have to go around a black hole to escape her. And I thought that was a really well done sequence. And it ultimately reminded me of something that you would see in Star Trek. Which, keep in mind, when it comes to Star Trek, it was never the most action-heavy series or movie franchise, and later it did sort of get there, but it was more scientific. They were humanitarians going on this diplomatic mission into the galaxy to figure out problems and find solutions. Sort of reminds you of the Fantastic Four, doesn't it? Okay, so I liked that. I thought that was a really fun scene. And also the music. I mean, I don't think anyone could arguably say this has a bad score from Michael Giacchino. So I thought that was great. Or is it Michael Giacchino? I think it's Giacchino. Okay. And then the last thing that we need to talk about when it comes to the Fantastic Four, and please, if you guys have anything else you want to chime in about this movie, was the 2 after-credit scenes. Now, if you've never seen a Marvel movie and you're new to this, well, there are 2 after-credit scenes in typical fashion. Now, the first one, and months ago, I talked about this in another live stream, but months ago, this was already leaked. They said that at the very end of Fantastic Four, that Sue Storm would walk into a room, and in that room would be Doctor Doom holding Franklin Richards. And that leak ended up being 100% accurate, because that's exactly what happens. She walks into the room, and you see a back view of Dr. Doom with the mask holding Franklin Richards. And I don't think that was that shocking of an after credit scene, but I liked that they put it in there. Also, the next after credit scene was sort of a cartoon version of the Fantastic Four from like the 1960s. And it's in the same cartoon style. Now, if you've never seen this, just look it up. It reminded me of the SNL sketch from 20 years ago. And what that was called was the Ambiguously Gay Duo. Should I show you what I'm talking about when it comes to the Ambiguously Gay Duo? I'll find it. Ambiguously Gay Duo. It just has like a 1960s look to it. Except the Ambiguously Gay Duo, well, I think the name says it all. But anyway, they had a rocket ship that looked like a giant ding-dong. That's all I'm saying. Come on. All right. Here it is. So that's the Ambiguously Gay Duo. And that's sort of what that second... Yeah, there you go. There you go. That's everything you need to know about them. So, but quite enjoyable, nevertheless. So those are my quick thoughts on Fantastic Four. Those are my spoiler thoughts. And if you guys have anything else you guys want to chime in, please let me know. We'll talk all about it. And the biggest question is, I'm kind of curious if they're going to nerf Franklin Richards' powers. Because if that little kid can do anything and everything, like, at what point do you stop? I feel like they need to have some limitations on what he can and cannot do. And the one scene I forgot to mention was when Sue Storm does die by sacrificing herself, he does bring his own mother back to life. And I thought that was awesome. I thought that was a really cool scene. So, and then they also sort of copy and pasted that scene, because in the 2007 Rise of the Silver Surfer movie, Sue Storm does die, but it's the Silver Surfer that brings her back to life. So there's that. All right. The next one comes from, let's see here. Kusana says, John, I'm your number one fan. Favorite worst film of 2025. I'll tell you my favorite comic book movie of 2025, and that's going to be Fantastic Four. I enjoyed the look of it, the tone of it. So I don't think it's my favorite movie of the year, but it's definitely one of them right now. My worst movie of 2025, I don't know. We could... Happy Gilmore might be on that list, but I'd have to. I know there's worse movies that have come out this year. The movie guy says, I haven't seen Fantastic Four movie, but Chris Evans will most likely always be the best Human Torch. You know, I agree. I'm going to disagree with that. I think Captain America makes a better... Or I'm sorry, I think Chris Evans makes a better Captain America than he does a Johnny Storm. And I think Joseph Quinn made a great 1960s Johnny Storm. Makano says, music was quality. I thought it fit the aesthetic very well. Oh yeah, it was great. I love the score of this. Mole Man was underused. Yeah, that's the other thing I want to talk about when it comes to Fantastic Four. I don't think the movie's 100% perfect. There are a few secondary characters, like you have Mole Man in the movie, who's sort of like a B villain from the comics. And his role that he plays in this movie was they utilize his underground tunnels to keep the city safe as they go into battle with Galactus. So rather than have an entire city crushed to death by Galactus's giant boot, or unlike the devastation and chaos you get in all the Avengers movies or Man of Steel, where the entire city is just being blown to shits and pieces, everyone goes underground, and Mole Man kind of does help facilitate that. But my biggest complaint when it comes to this movie is, I know for a fact that they did remove a few subplots out of the film. They had one with the character Red Ghost, who trains gorillas, and he was going to be played by John Malkovich. And I'm not sure if that was going to be like a 2-minute plot or a scene or a 5-minute subplot. Could not tell you. But going in from the second to the third act of the movie, where society's coming together to find a solution to beat Galactus, and they're building these transportation devices across the planet, because the original plan was to transport Earth to another galaxy to avoid Galactus until they figure out, well, why don't we just transport Galactus? And then ultimately, maybe you could have just built a spaceship that went into space that had a transporter on it to transport Galactus there, rather than waiting on him to come to Earth to do it. But anyway, call me crazy. Maybe Reed Richards should have thought of that first. But my point is, it does feel like there's maybe a handful of scenes that were cut short with some more build-up explaining things. And I feel like most of that feels blatantly obvious going into the third act of the movie, because it does feel like maybe there was a little more room for this movie to breathe and explain things before it abruptly happens. And that's my biggest issue. There's just a few things that feel like they abruptly happen without much lead up or build up to it. And most of that just transpires into the third act of the movie. But that's really my biggest nitpick with it. It does feel like there was 5 or 10 minutes of this movie left on the editing room floor somewhere that should have been in the movie. And maybe we'll see it in the deleted scenes or something one day, but really my biggest issue with it. All right. Vino says, John, I just joined from 3C Stream. Well, thanks for that, man. He's a great guy, but my stream's better. Come on, man. Just stick around here. All right. I'm just kidding. His is probably better. I don't know. Michael Joel says, Dumb and Dumber, When Harry Met Lloyd, is better than Dumb and Dumber 2, hands down. You know what? I think they're both bad. All right, so those are my quick thoughts on Fantastic Four. We'll keep talking about it, but let me dive into some of your questions here, because you guys have been waiting way too long. So here we go. Let's dive into the questions. Oh gosh, here we go. Let me scroll back. Let me scroll way back. Sal says, Hey John, I saw Fantastic Four on Friday. It was fine. However, I saw it in 3D and it was amazing. Usually studios half-ass a post-converted 3D movie, but this time it was great. Any thoughts? I have not seen the 3D version of Fantastic Four. Maybe next time I go see it in theaters, maybe just for the sake of something new and different, maybe I'll watch it in 3D to see how it is. But that's awesome. I have seen a lot of, and by the way, this new trend of taking pictures of movies in the theater needs to end very quickly. Because if you go to the movie theater and, if there's no one else in it and you take a picture of the screen or something to say, hey, I saw the movie, fine, whatever. But when people take like 75 photos and dump them on social media, I do not like that. It's like, just watch the movie. You don't have to take pictures of it for some kind of weird accreditation of watching the fucking movie in the theater. Don't do that. But anyway, maybe next time I go see it, I will watch it in 3D. But my point to that was, I would love to see it in IMAX, because some of the Galactus scenes in IMAX looked pretty cool. There's just so much more on the top and the bottom of the screen that you don't get when you watch it in the standard cinematic format. And the next one comes from Skylar Wheelock, who says, Can you believe The Shawshank Redemption, Pulp Fiction, and Forrest Gump were all in theaters at the same time 31 years ago? Yeah, it's kind of bizarre, isn't it? It's like you didn't know how good you had it. And I'm trying to think of the last year that we had 5 great movies or 3 great movies in the theater at the same time. And if you know that, let me know down below. I cannot think of another time period. Like 1999, throughout the course of that entire year, there were so many iconic movies that came out, but not at the exact same time. But this year, we currently have 14 Pedro Pascal movies in theaters at the same time. All right. The next one comes from Tommy Lee, who says, and by the way, Sal, you get a party popper. Thank you for your dedication and your support of the channel. 3, 2, 1. There you go, man. Thanks for the question. All right. The next one comes from Tommy Lee. Hey, Jonathan. After my last 2 chats, I wondered what I could ask that may be thought-provoking. Given that the Earth's atmospheric pressure is 14.7 pounds per square inch, what did you eat for lunch? Well, that's interesting that you brought that up because, sometimes I ponder very thought-provoking questions throughout the day. And I've really come to the conclusion, the more I think about it, the possibility that we're living in a simulation is more likely than not. And what I mean by that is in 50 years or 100 years, if AI becomes so advanced and quantum mechanics and computing becomes so powerful that one day, for example, let's just pretend ChatGPT still exists, but the computing power is ungodly, you would be able to create a digital civilization that have their own consciousness with a few prompts that would exist digitally in a digital universe. And within that universe, everyone would be conscious and alive and ever expanding and ever growing, sort of like what we're doing now. And if that can happen in a 50 or 100 years, who's to say that we're not currently living in a simulation just like that? In layman's terms, think of it this way. Think of Grand Theft Auto, but think of Grand Theft Auto on a cosmic scale, where all these NPC characters now have their own consciousness and live their own lives. That's all I'm saying. The likelihood that we're living within that is a very strong possibility. So with all that said, thank you for the question. And what did I eat for lunch today? I ate a breakfast sandwich at noon, and that's all I've had to eat today. But I'm really looking forward to the leftover tacos that we made last night so I can eat them after this live stream and wash them down with a delicious Dr. Pepper Zero. Oh, there's something about that I love. People that live overseas, especially in the UK, hate Dr. Pepper. They say it tastes like cough medicine, but for me, I like cough medicine too. So anyway, thank you for the question. All right, let's go to the next one. And the next one comes from. Do you guys believe that we live in a simulation? Just let me know down below. Just for the sake of letting me know, I need to know if you believe it. Part of me does. Anyway, the next one comes from James Dozier, who says, "Hey John, I saw Superman the last couple of weeks, and I guess I sort of enjoyed it for what it was. Again, I kind of went in not caring all that much, but I see why it's very divisive. I did enjoy Crypto, the dog, more than anything." Yeah, here's the thing about Superman. If you like that movie, I completely understand why you like it. I get it. It's a fun Superman movie that's a bit different, a bit zany, and there are a lot of things that I think they did well and they change up for the character of Superman that make him more interesting, that sort of humanize him. And I would like to see a sequel of Superman and David Cornsweet's portrayal. My biggest issue when it comes to James Gunn's version of Superman that we got, and keep in mind, I've seen the movie 3 times now. The last time I saw the movie, I went to the drive-in and watched it, which would probably be the most enjoyable experience I had watching Superman. Something about watching that movie outdoors on a giant screen and the projection of Superman outdoors, it added a little more softness to the picture quality of the movie. And the reason I feel like I liked it more was it didn't feel so overly digital or sharp. It sort of added more of a soft glow to it that made it feel more filmic. Anyway, something about watching movies outdoors just makes movies better. And if you've never done it, try it sometime. My best advice to you. But when it comes to Superman from James Gunn, my biggest issue with the movie was James Gunn left unchecked. When you give James Gunn complete creative control, like any director, sometimes they get a little indulgent, and I think there should be checks and balances. I really do. And the reason I say that is, if you watch something like James Gunn's Suicide Squad or James Gunn's Superman movie, they both feel a little bit discombobulated. Like there's some good ideas, but there's like too many ideas, and some of them don't quite mesh that well. And that's sort of my biggest complaint with the new Superman movie. And also, it felt like as much as they wanted to make it about a character learning his own humanity, at times the movie feels like it has no humanity. And I get where you're coming from if you want to say it's sort of like a live action adaptation of the Superman animated series from the 1990s. At times, it very much felt like that. Superman's lifting up a building or saving a squirrel. I liked all those small details, but I think it was the overall look and vibe of the movie. And for me, when it comes to like what James Gunn does best, when it comes to that zany comic book vibe with not humanitarian, but with humanity interjected into it with like the right amount of drama, I think something like Guardians of the Galaxy gets that right. Like you have the drama, you have the characters, you have the emotion, and though it exists in this over-the-top universe where anything can happen, and by anything happening, I mean a talking tree, voiced by Vin Diesel, you still like everyone in the movie. They feel like real people that have real thoughts and emotions and feelings, and they're sort of compelling. And I just, outside of like Superman, I didn't really feel like a lot of the characters in that movie were all that compelling. I'm not saying they weren't entertaining. I wanted more of that. And I think the tone of something like Guardians of the Galaxy, if they could have got that with Superman, I think you would have had the ultimate Superman movie. I think that's where it needed to be. So those are just my quick thoughts. I don't even know if that was the question that I was supposed to answer, but thank you nevertheless, man, for the question. And thanks, Tommy. Was that the question we just answered from Tommy? Oh, that was the next one. Okay. But thanks, James Doshier. Thank you for the question. Skylar Wheelock back again says, when did fandom turn into standom where every movie or actor has an army ready to attack everyone who disagrees? Well, that's just cult mentality. You see what happens psychologically. People, they like to group up because when they group up and they all agree on the same thing, it gives them some kind of like power. It makes them feel like they belong. It's a sense of family and community. And I get all of that. But I think sometimes we're picking a weird cult to join. It's like, what do you guys stand for? And it's like, oh, okay, you really like one random Zack Snyder movie that much where you're going to defend it until death or life or what have you. And it's like, I think you just have to pick and choose in life what you really stand behind. And some things ultimately do not matter. Okay. But I think that's part of it. And also, I think the other thing is, the more social media that we have, the more that you think we would be connected as society and humanity, the more we're disconnected. You know, it's like we're staying inside, but we're not really interacting in a normal, healthy way. We're behind closed doors, and we're all turning into Gollum, holding our preciouses, just oozing away, and we all smell like bad body odors. We eat Cheetos. Trust me, I've been there. And I think that's another part of the problem. But what do I know? What do I know? But that could be part of the problem. I don't know, man. But everything has its cult following, doesn't it? Good or bad, it has it. Okay, let's go to the next one here. Jake Talman says, passionate fans have always existed, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with being passionate. There's nothing wrong with being passionate, but you also have to be cognitive at the same time. And using brain power it's diminishing. It really is. Because you have people that watch a movie, and rather than watch this movie that's subjective art, they're watching it with this emotional approach to it, where if anyone talks bad about it, it's like I just talked about your father who died in the Vietnam War and I'm crapping on his grave. It's like, nah, man, this is just like a corporate product made by a corporation to sell tickets to be more profitable. And yeah, I hope that these things called movies, which are products, are great and entertaining and thought-provoking. But at the end of the day, keep in mind that's what it is. That's what it is. So you can't take anything too personal, or at least that's my motto. But then again, sometimes I do. All right, let's go to the next one here. The next one comes from Sal, who says, I've heard people complain about Happy Gilmore 2's runtime. It reminds me of when Anchorman 2's runtime was 118 minutes long compared to the first movie's 95-minute runtime. It's exactly the same things. By the way, you get a party popper. So rather than have a 90-minute comedy movie, you're now just dragging it out to 2 hours. And I'm not quite sure why they're doing this. My only answer to this is, since it was made for streaming and it's a Netflix movie, that means the longer the movie is, the more watch time the movie will get. So you can then say, this is the most watched movie of the month. Because technically speaking, it has the most minutes consumed. And maybe that's where they're coming from with that approach. But it really felt like in Happy Gilmore 2, everything that they shot, every random idea that they had, they just put it in the movie. And now, if this was a real movie, like a theatrical release, I think it would have been an hour and 40 minutes long. Because when you're watching something at home, I feel like you can be a bit more forgiving, especially when you're watching a free movie on Netflix. You can be a bit more forgiving. But when it comes to the theater experience, every minute counts. So I think that's probably why they did it. The next one comes from Jake Tammin, who says, Yo, John, have you read the Coming of Galactus story in the comics? If not, definitely check it out. Way better ending than the movie, and Jack Kirby's art is insane. I do not know the ending to that, or maybe I do, but I'm not familiar with exactly what you're talking about. I don't know a lot about Galactus. I don't know every in and out. I know about Galactus from watching the majority of animated comic book series in the 90s and occasionally picking up a few Fantastic Four comic books in the 90s. But I'm not an expert on Galactus by any means. I'm just glad that Galactus no longer looks like a giant shit cloud coming to Earth, and he looks like a cosmic god. The next one comes from James Doshier once again, who says, were you ever a fan of Hulk Hogan since now he has passed away? I enjoyed the match that he had with The Rock at WrestleMania 18 in 2002. Yeah, growing up, Hulk Hogan was always the most notable icon when it comes to pro wrestling, and I think he will be for a very long time. And say what you will about his politics or some of the things he said, ultimately at the end of the day, Hulk Hogan was the face of pro wrestling for 30 plus years. And he was definitely the face of wrestling in the 80s and early 90s. So yeah, I was a Hulk Hogan fan. And more or less though, to be honest with you, I didn't get into pro wrestling until like the late 1990s, probably 1997 at the very end of it is when I got into WWF at the time. But before that, I was always a fan of Hulk Hogan's movies because you had Suburban Commando, which I loved quite a bit growing up. Then you had Mr. Nanny, which is by all means objectively an abomination against cinema, and it's a terrible movie, but those are the kinds of movies I watched in the early 90s when I was a kid. Whenever I could go to the video store and I saw Hulk Hogan on the cover of a movie, I was probably going to rent it. That's just the way my brain worked when I was a kid. So yeah, I was a fan of Hulk Hogan, especially like in his shitty movies that he started in the 90s. And then he had that one show that he crapped out where, what was that called? Like Thunder in Paradise, where he drove a speedboat. It was so terrible. The movie guy, thanks for the question, the movie guy, who says, I can't say I'm excited for Happy Gilmore 2, but I'll watch it eventually. Did Chubbs make an AI cameo appearance? You know what? I'm happy to announce Chubbs did not come back as an AI character in Happy Gilmore 2. So for that, I can respect it. But then again, I'm surprised that they almost didn't do it. But yeah, Chubbs doesn't show up, but you do have his nephew or his son or whoever make an appearance. So there's that. But thanks, movie guy, for the question. Here's a party popper just for you. All right. I love the way those smell. I really do. They wake me up. They give me energy. And speaking of energy, let me take a sip of my delicious caffeinated beverage. And thanks to everyone watching right now. Thank you guys so much for joining me on this glorious, moist and sultry Sunday night. It's been a very warm and tropical week. Did you guys know something called corn sweat is a real thing in the Midwest? I'm not talking about David Corn Sweat. I'm talking about the actual scientific phenomenon behind corn sweat. What happens is, since there's so much corn in the Midwest, it retains moisture. And when it gets so warm, all that moisture is released into the atmosphere, thus making it hotter and more humid than it already is. So it's this ever-repeating cycle that makes it warmer and more tropical feeling. So if I walk outside right now, it feels sticky. Like you literally just get wet when you walk outside. But for all the wrong reasons. All right, let's go to the next one here. And the next one comes from... MKF30, who says, more excited for Mortal Kombat 2 or Street Fighter Legacy. Dude, listen. I've said this once and I'll say it a million times. Let me back up. Street Fighter 1994 is an abomination against humanity. I remember vividly seeing that movie in theaters. And keep in mind, I've always been a fan of the Street Fighter games. I have a Street Fighter arcade cabinet back there. It's the Yoga Flame edition, and occasionally I play it in my underwear late at night. But beyond all of that, the 1994 Street Fighter movie is terrible. Though I do sometimes occasionally go back and watch it when I'm eating frozen pizza at 2 o'clock in the morning, because it just makes me feel good about my life. But the Mortal Kombat movie from 1995, for me, is the best video game movie ever made. So based on that, I'm more excited for Mortal Kombat 2 because I think that trailer starring Carl Urban as Johnny Cage, that's sort of the vibe and tone that I wanted to see from that last Mortal Kombat movie. But in place of that, we got some generic made-up character named Cole, who is just generic guy fighting Goro in someone's garage, and it was terrible, and you didn't even get the tournament vibe. So I thought that was a wasted opportunity, and I think it was a big waste of the IP of Mortal Kombat in that previous Mortal Kombat movie. But I think the trailer for the new one looks kind of fun. But I'm sort of looking forward to that new Street Fighter movie. Now, I've heard that it stars a few WWE wrestlers. I think Cody Rhodes might be playing the character Guile. I think that's been confirmed, but I'm going to wait and see what the trailer looks like. But I am sort of looking forward to it because I am a huge Street Fighter fan, and I think there's so much you can do with it. I'm just hoping they do it. And I can't wait to see Blanca in the movie. All right, let's go to the next one here. The next one comes from Skylar Wheelock, who says, do you ever think back about all the crazy stuff you did when you were younger and wondered how you're still alive? You know what's funny about that? I do think about that very often. I think about all the dangerous, dumb shit I did as a teenager. And I did a lot of dumb stuff. And it's not until you get older that you realize you come to the self-awareness that you have your own mortality. You understand just how fickle and fragile you really are as a person. I could not imagine doing a fraction of the stuff I did when I was 15 years old, let alone some of the, and the thing about being on YouTube for so long, for the last 15 years, is I have a track record of everything I've ever done. And I'm not saying that I've done dangerous, crazy things or I've went skydiving without a parachute, but just some of the stupid stuff I've done throughout the years. I can go back and look at that, and I think to myself, what was I thinking? And the truth is, it's only because my frontal lobe had not fully developed. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, the younger you are, especially if you're a dude, that frontal cortex on your brain, it's not developed. It's soft. It's like chewed up bubble gum. And the older you get, the more it will develop and harden up. So you'll have some more self-awareness and better survival instincts than you probably do at a younger age. So just stick in there. But that's where I'm at in life now. But I'll tell you what comes with that. I'll tell you what comes along with that. Then you get anxiety the older you get. And then you second guess everything that you do. And then you get midlife crisis episodes. And I go through that on a weekly basis. I'm like, who am I? What am I? What should I be doing? Where do I belong in the universe? What's the point of all of this? We're basically just bacteria that got lucky on a rock, and here we are. But thank God for the advent of technology and the internet. That way I can talk about movies on a video camera and then connect with you guys via this thing called the internet. And it's beautiful. So it's kind of bizarre when you think about it, isn't it? Did that answer your question? I'm willing to bet I probably didn't, but thank you for it. Thanks for the question, man. All right, let's go to the next one here. The next one comes from Bryce Tiffany, who says, John, just got a Sony Bravia 8 Mark I replacing my 4K TV my parents got me 6 years ago. That's dim AF. Have made a vow to not set it up until I have finished my vet school application. Thoughts on the motivation behind the TV? Motivation is a great thing. And I think if you're procrastinating and you want to get something done, I think it's beautiful. And if your TV is motivation for you to get something done in life, to light a fire under your ass, to get going, I respect that. I do. I motivate myself on a weekly basis with the most minute, small things. And I think everyone should do that. You know, for example, tomorrow, there's a few things I got to get done, but my motivation is to not have to do anything. And what I do on Monday nights is I watch WWE Raw on Netflix. I usually get a pizza from Pizza Hut, and that's my little gift I give myself every Monday. That's how I start off the Monday. But in order to enjoy that, I got to kick some ass on Monday and get some of the obligations done. So yeah, I get it. So by all means, but don't wait too long, because leaving a TV in a box unwatched, I would almost say that's a crime against humanity if you let it go for too long. So get that application done and good luck. And thank you for the question. Okay, the next one comes from... let's see. And by the way, Bryce, you also get a party popper, so thank you for your dedication and your support. Here, don't blink. I mean this. Don't blink. You guys ready? All right. Terrence Daniel has just subscribed. Well, thanks for the subscription, man. Hope you stick around. All right. Bubba Burger says, John, watching your content reminds me of 2015 when movie content on YouTube was still great. You're one of the last real ones. Just curious, though. You got that thing where one nut hangs lower than the other one? I'm glad you brought up my testicles, because this is a major plot point of the live stream that I'm glad that we could I'm glad that we could organically talk about it. I think everyone does, but also I'm going to be honest with you. I think I'm getting a slight hernia. The older I get, I'm like, the more I do yard work and lift things, I feel like I got a little soreness going on the right side of that. So I need to get that checked out. But thank you for asking. Yes. And what else did you say? Oh, yes. But thanks for the compliment, man. You know, I just put out a post today on X where I kind of said, you know, I miss the version of life from 2015, which, keep in mind, was a decade ago. And as I get older, the faster time flies by. But 10 years ago, I really do genuinely mean this. I do think social media was a better place. And I think it was less stressful. I think it was less chaotic. But you had everything that you needed. You had YouTube. You had Instagram. You had Twitter. You had all these different things. But you didn't have to do all of them to keep up, to be a content creator. And now, every 3 seconds, you have a billion new videos to weed through. Every topic that can be talked about exists. And it's almost overwhelming to me. And it's so much digital noise where I feel like the ever-flowing amount of content and the need to keep up with it is utterly exhausting. And maybe I'm just getting older, or maybe I just don't give a shit anymore, but I cannot keep up with it. I can't. I like to take it slow, and I like to take it easy. But I think the biggest detriment to all of this, and stick with me for a second, because this is not just a live show about movies. These are my philosophical thoughts on life and society. So welcome, okay? This is ultimately a movie self-help group therapy session, okay? My name's John, and you're welcome. So it's a safe place. But the point is, and my point is, I do have one. And what was it? Oh, yes. Actually, I forgot what I was going to say. I had a really good point to tell you guys. What was I going to say about this? 2015 society, life, movies. Oh, yes. I feel like the more digital content that's crapped out into the internet, especially when it comes to, and I'm just talking about movies, just movies for example, because that's what I do. I feel like the more stuff people crap out about movies every day, every second, and they don't give anything time to breathe. There's no room to talk about or discuss things anymore. Because as soon as like a new movie comes out, like Fantastic Four, just came out 2 days ago. The movie literally came out, technically speaking, on Friday. And now we're on Sunday. And by tomorrow, it's going to be like that movie never existed. Because we're going to be inundated with the next 5 million things to talk about. And I don't like that. I miss a time period where you could have a new movie that came out. People would just talk about that for a week, maybe two, and then we would go off into the next thing. And whatever you put out into the universe now, it's going to be at the bottom of that subscription box within 5 seconds because there's already 10 million videos on top of it. And to me, I don't like this version of a reality that we live in on social media. I think it's exhausting. And I think people should legally be limited to putting out one video per day. I stand by that. All right, let's go to the next one. Okay. Daddy Needs to Chill says it's already old news. That's my point exactly. 10 years ago, we would have talked about this shit for a week. But here we are now. It's Sunday, and it's sort of like the last day to talk about it. All right, let's go to the next one here. And the next one comes from... let's go up here. The Movie Guy, back again, says... I love the original Happy Gilmore. It's endlessly rewatchable. To me, this film seems like a cheap, let's profit off of people our age going through a midlife crisis. In my opinion, I'll watch it eventually, but I'm not jonesing to see it. And that's exactly how you should feel about it, because it's one of those movies that ultimately, if you never watched it, you probably wouldn't miss anything, because all it does is it just recaps everything that happened in the previous movie, elaborates on it in a more depressing, more convoluted way with more nonsensical humor and cameos throughout, and it basically just leaves you off where you started. So it doesn't really even need to exist. But I'm not saying I didn't enjoy it for 2 hours, but I will say this. Since you can watch it at home for free on Netflix and you don't have to put pants on to go to the movie theater, then I guess that's the quality that you should expect to get. So thanks for the question, The Movie Guy, once again. And here's your party popper. I love cleaning these up after the live streams. Small price to pay for glory, though. All right. The next one comes from... we got a new subscriber here. Is it Tyrese Daniels? I think, yeah. Well, thank you for that. Or did you already subscribe? I think I already read that. All right, here it goes. Jason Nilsson says, Hey, John. What was the death count in First Steps? That's a great question. I'm not quite sure. I'm sure a few people died or were crushed to death by Galactus. I mean, I don't know. I'm hoping there were a few people that were murdered in this cosmic god invasion on Earth. If they weren't, then that's not very realistic, but I'm sure a few people had heart attacks by just going through the experience. But that's a great question. I do not know. Skylar Wheelock says, Am I the only one that finds it hilarious that people think the Avengers need to fight Galactus when the Fantastic Four have handled him on their own in the comics multiple times? Well, the thing is, they just outsmarted Galactus, you know? And they didn't really defeat him. I mean, they sort of just pushed him into a portal to the point where, like, they didn't kill him. They just sort of nudged him a few feet in the right direction. But keep in mind, it took all of them and all of their powers and all of their ability and all of their science and all of their technology to just nudge Galactus a few steps back through a portal to exist in some other multiverse somewhere or whatever. And you know what's funny about that is What if and by the way, quick spoilers. I know I already talked about spoilers in Fantastic Four, but quick spoilers on Fantastic Four. What if the universe that they sent Galactus to was just like the version of Earth? What is it? Earth 828 or 325 or whatever, the version of Earth that the entire first phase of Marvel took place in. What if that's where they sent Galactus and he's just now in their universe about to eat it? I don't know. I think that would be kind of funny. It's like, good job, Avengers, by saving the day and defeating Thanos, but there's Galactus, so sorry. I don't know. All right. Let's go to the next one here. Clark Ingleton says, Sopranos or Breaking Bad, and why Sopranos for me? You know, the thing is, I like both of them. I do. I think Breaking Bad was a little more visceral to me, where it was like I could not stop watching Breaking Bad. I was almost addicted and glued to it. And I think I liked a majority of the characters more. And I just liked the storyline to Breaking Bad a bit more. But Sopranos is definitely a series that you need to watch at least once in your life. I definitely enjoy like the first 3 or 4 seasons of Sopranos more than the last 1 or 2. But I always liked the character Paulie from Sopranos. Hey, T! I don't know. But I like the characters in Breaking Bad more. Bradley Pooper says Galactus was in a weak state. Yeah, maybe he was just hungry. He's like, hey, this Earth is a late night snack. I'm gonna go there, consume it. No big deal. Don't take it personal. And he was willing to give it up. He was like, give me Franklin Richards. You guys can have Earth. Take it. I don't care. All right. Laughingstock Media says, I hope they introduce Beta Ray Bill so we can get God Killer. That was an awesome storyline with him hunting and starving Galactus by destroying planets. I'm not familiar with that. It sounds like it could work. I mean, basically, if you starve Galactus, doesn't he die off? So. All right. Bradley Pooper says 616. I'm sorry. Yes, 616. Dustin Rich says, is Fantastic Four the best superhero movie of the year? For me, Fantastic Four is the best superhero movie of the year. I think when it comes to just getting a straightforward comic book movie that doesn't just twist and change everything for the sake of changing it, I don't know what more you could want from an adaptation of the comic books into a Fantastic Four movie. And that time period in the 1960s, that was exactly what they should have done with the Fantastic Four. And the fun thing is, going forward with the Fantastic Four and all these characters, when they eventually meet up with the current incarnation of the MCU and all of the Avengers, I think having that contrast, that sort of fish out of water story, like, because keep in mind, the Fantastic Four come from a simpler time, the 1960s. And now when they come into like present day, in Doomsday at some point, I think that'll lead to being sort of fun and interesting. Like, Reed Richards at one point is going to look at a smartphone and go, I think there's going to be some like social commentary on that. I think that'll be sort of interesting. So I'm kind of looking forward to it. But yes, I do think it's by far and away my favorite comic book movie of 2025. All right. The next one comes from, I'm sorry, I'm trying to read through the normal chat as much as I can, guys, but it's moving very quickly. Makano says 1960s was peak culture for me. Could have fun, but people still felt shame. Fair enough. That is odd. That's funny you say that. Yeah, we don't feel shame anymore. Anything's fine. That is true. All right, let's go to the next one here. And the next one comes from Alex Carr, who says, I enjoyed Happy Gilmore too, but I thought it was dumb that they killed off Julie Bowen's character in the first 5 minutes, and I thought there were too many celebrity cameos, but I enjoyed it besides that. Well, basically what you're describing is the entire movie, though. Every 5 minutes, it's a cameo or a flashback scene to the previous movie. So every time this movie gets going, it's like, it just reminds you that this movie doesn't really have anything to offer other than flashbacks or celebrity cameos. And I didn't even know who half the celebrities were. They showed like a lot of like golf pros and like, and their acting is so bad. I'm like, I just don't want to watch this anymore. I don't know. It wanted to be almost, another thing when it comes to Happy Gilmore 2, it almost felt like Space Jam. It sort of gave me a Space Jam vibe, but I'm not talking about the original one starring Michael Jordan. I'm talking about the LeBron James Space Jam, which was just so bad, where you have this group of old-fashioned athletes going up against another version of athletes. Yeah, I get that. Just occurred to me. It sort of does have like Space Jam vibes in Happy Gilmore 2. So yeah, there's that. Let's go to the next one here. Skylar Wheelock says, who is your wrestler of the year halfway into 2025? Which fast-paced mascot would be a great wrestler? Which fast-paced mascot? I don't know anything about mascots, man. But my favorite wrestler of 2025, I wouldn't say it's his promo skills or his charisma by any means, but as far as like in-ring athleticism goes and like just buying what he's selling with how extreme he is and how fast-paced he can go, and he can almost make every match look a little dangerous, I would say Braun Breaker is one of my favorite in-ring wrestlers. I really think that would be one of my favorites right now. Just the athleticism that he brings to WWE. Because I saw Raw live a couple months ago, and just how fast he moves, it's kind of scary. It just feels like someone's neck is going to get snapped in half when he's wrestling, and I like that. That was like one of my favorite things about Brock Lesnar. Like when he's in the ring, you feel like you're watching a real athlete compete, and he's not pulling his punches. I kind of like that about him. So maybe Braun Breaker currently. Alex Carr says, I enjoyed Happy Gilmore 2 than I thought. It was dumb. We answered that already. Sorry, we keep repeating the same questions. Okay. The movie guy says, watch The Big Lebowski this week. More people need to see it. Dude, it's kind of weird. The older I get, the younger the YouTube demographic becomes. The older I get, they just stay the same age. That's not even true. They get younger. And a lot of people have not seen The Big Lebowski. And listen, if you want subdued, funny, dry comedy that just works, and you want to watch a movie about a dude who's basically the laziest man who's ever existed, that just wants to get high all day and go bowling, which the older I get, the more I relate to it, go watch The Big Lebowski. It's a phenomenal movie. So yeah, it's great. 12-year-olds, dude. 12-year-olds. Give me a Big Lebowski sequel, Netflix. Come on. I'll watch that. But anyway, movie guy, thanks for the question. Here's your party popper. that accidentally went off. I accidentally just discharged a party popper. Here, take another one, man. There you go. All right. Let's keep going. All right, the next question comes from a lot of people haven't seen The Dark Knight. Is that true? I don't know. I don't think I've ever met anyone who hasn't seen The Dark Knight. But if you have, just tape their eyeballs open, Clockwork Orange style, and make them watch it. John, did you watch All Quiet on the Western Front? I did not watch it. I've heard great things. I just never got around to watching it. It's on the to-do list. A Big Lebowski sequel only if the Coens come back. I agree with that. Okay. Yeah, I saw the Dark Knight in theaters probably, I don't know, 5 times, at least 5 times. And I kind of liked it more every time I watched it. So there's that. And that's also one of those movies that the first time I watched it, I didn't know what to think about it. Because for me, it was so tonally different than Batman Begins. It took me 2 times to watch it to really almost consume it. I was like, my brain was still scattered after the first time I watched it. All right, the next one comes from the movie guy once again, who says, Wanted to go see Fantastic Four today, but plans changed. Try to keep the spoilers to a minimum, John. And yes, John, I have a severe guilty pleasure for Fantastic Four 2005. You know what? And that's fine. I can respect that. And I'm sorry because I keep spoiling the movie. But ultimately, if you've... It's you know, the thing about Fantastic Four is I will say the characters are so interesting and compelling and it's so much fun. I could tell you the ending to Fantastic Four and I don't think it would spoil anything, but I do have to spoil one thing. Can I spoil one thing about the movie? This is the biggest spoiler, so can you put your earmuffs on and count to 22? Here we go. 3, 2, 1. Or 3, 2, 1? I don't know. When it comes to Fantastic Four, I said this previously. I really expected this movie to end on a very dark, depressing note, which I would have respected. I thought Galactus was going to win, the Fantastic Four escape Earth and look for a solution to try to go back in time and save it. I thought that was where we were going based on the end credit scene from Thunderbolts. So I thought that's where it was going to go. But ultimately, I do feel like the ending that we got, it did make the Fantastic Four feel fantastic. So I think they went the right direction with it. So there's that. Okay. I won't spoil anything else about the Fantastic Four. Or maybe I will. I'm not quite sure. But thanks for the question, man. And let's talk about Fantastic Four from 2005. I had not seen that movie since probably 2005 when I watched it in theaters. My wife had never seen it, so we watched it a week or two ago in preparation for the new Fantastic Four film. And when you watch that movie, basically, when you want to, if you want to talk about action scenes, okay, here's the action scenes in that movie. Ben Grimm basically causes all of the issues throughout that entire film. The first scene where he becomes the Thing, he's basically sitting on a bridge, and it's because of him, because, you know, when I ponder about my thoughts of my body dysmorphia, I have to go sit on the side of a bridge and save a guy from jumping off of it. But anyway, he causes destruction on that bridge. Then he causes a traffic jam on the bridge. It's all of his fault, only because he decided to go sit on a bridge. Go to a park bench or something, man. Go to a Starbucks. You don't need to go to a bridge. And the other thing about that action sequence, it's so hilarious because at the very end of it, Ben Grimm saves the day and he's happy and society's like accepting him, even though he's the one who caused all this chaos on the bridge. His wife, who already like thought he was grotesque and disgusting the first time she saw him in a trench coat and just ran away when she was in her nightgown, who came out to the city street. By the way, ma'am, what are you doing out there? Go inside. But she just comes to that bridge to take her wedding ring and lay it down and run away after she looks at him all disgusting like once again. She is the true villain of that movie. Dr. Doom is fine. Ben Grimm's wife is the biggest piece of shit in that Fantastic Four movie. Anyway, but then again, they do defeat Dr. Doom in that movie with a fire hydrant. Yeah. One of the biggest baddies in the cosmic verse, they defeat with a fire hydrant. Just let that sink in for a second. He got really hot, then they made him wet, and then that's how they beat him. Okay, let's go to the next question. All right, Karasuna says, "Hey John, I'm your number one fan." Well, thank you for that. And I'm going to start talking a little quicker because we are way behind on these questions. So if you guys submitted a question, just know I'm getting to it. I just like to give you guys thought-provoking, fulfilling answers because I feel like it's the least I can do. Claudia Rogajon says, so Franklin Richards is just Jack Jack. Yeah, basically, but I don't think Jack Jack had the ability to truly be a god, did he? But the thing I enjoy most about Fantastic Four and The Incredibles, speaking of superhero movie comparisons, is they both share that retro futuristic 1960s aesthetic. And I think it's great. All right, let's go to the next one here. Take My Strong Hand says, can you do an impression of Tom Hardy's Bane as Linus Tech Tips? Yeah, man, I don't. Oh, that's a hard one to do. Give me something Linus Tech Tip says on often in their videos, and I'll try to come up with something. Someone in the comments, tell me a line that Linus Tech Tip says often, and I'll do my best. But just hang on to that thought, and maybe we'll get there eventually. That is the weirdest question of the night, and I do thank you for it, and I will give you something for it. But somebody chime in with what Linus Tech Tip says often. All right. Old D says, John, rate these movies in order. Alien, Jaws, The Dark Knight. Well, for me, and this is just my biased opinion, right? I think Jaws is by far the most iconic classic film. And I think Alien definitely is an iconic classic film. For me, my personal favorite's The Dark Knight. It just is. But I think, iconically speaking, I think it goes like Jaws first. And then I think when it comes to like cultural phenomenon, I think The Dark Knight might be more impactfully culturally speaking than Alien was. Maybe that's a divisive thing to say. I'm not quite sure, but I think, or maybe it's not. I don't know. But I like The Dark Knight the most out of all three, but I think Jaws is the most iconic easily. All right, the next one comes from Linus always says too long, didn't read when people disagree with him in the chat. What? Dude, I don't even know what Linus Tech Tip says. Our GPU today is brought to you by Squarespace. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what he says. But good point, Big Don. For the modern era, I'm sure more people would know The Dark Knight. And that's fair. That's a very fair point. But everyone knows what Jaws is, right? But I've never met anyone who didn't know what Jaws was, but I've met a lot of people who have never seen Alien. A lot of people. But I've never met that many people who haven't seen The Dark Knight. So there's that. All right, let's go to the next one here. And the next one comes from Bryce Tiffany, who says, there ain't no way you missed my $20 super chat. Didn't you, John? Be careful or I'm going to get you. I answered your question. Yes, I answered it. We were just a little behind on the questions. I did answer it, right? Sorry, we're just very behind on the questions. But here's another party popper for you, Bryce Tiffany. All right, let's go to the next one. I answered your question, right? Okay. I won't leave you hanging. Robert Giacinto says, have you ever got down... Wait. Where are we going with this? Have you ever got down in a movie theater? You know, there's a lot of things I've done in movie theaters. But keep in mind, I've been going to the movie theater just for a very long time. But also keep in mind, in high school, right, when you were talking to the ladies... you couldn't necessarily go to your house. You know what I mean? You always had to go somewhere to hang out. So the movie theaters were the perfect prime location. But also keep in mind, what you did is you picked the worst movie that existed where no one else would be in the movie theater. So I don't know. I'm talking to you, Crank Part 2. Let's go to the next question here. Vino El Bambino says... who's more about family, Fast and Furious 4 or Dominic Toretto? Family. You know, I think Fantastic Four might be more about family. But then again, I feel like the superpowers that you see in Fantastic Four are almost more realistic than the superpowers that you see in any of the Fast and Furious films for the last decade. Like, at least the laws of physics apply to what the Fantastic Four are doing. And keep in mind, there's a man who can fly around while he's on fire. But for some odd reason, that's more believable to me than watching Dominic Toretto's bloated ass driving a car down the Hoover Dam while a giant explosion happens as Jason Momoa laughs in the corner. I think that's all more buyable than anything I've seen in Fantastic Four. Or, I'm sorry, Fast and Furious. So, yeah. All right, the next one comes from Dustin Rich says, I want to believe Bane has tech support podcasts. Oh, he most definitely does. Thank you for calling today. This is Bane. How can I help you? I don't know. Bane has an Indian accent in his tech support. I'm sorry for that. But it's the truth. Flicks You Can Feel says, optical discs, protein shakes, and frozen pizza is all you need in this lifetime. Maybe Sour Patch Kids or two. Yeah, I'll tell you this, though. The older I get, the more you realize that your enamel on your teeth, it can only take so much, okay? If you sand a piece of wood with 100 grit sandpaper, eventually it's going to whittle down into nothing. And that's what Sour Patch Kids will do to your teeth. So you got to be careful. That's what I've become now. I now give dental advice. Okay, the next one comes from Claudia Rogajon, who says, speaking of Superman, what are your honest thoughts on the first two Christopher Reeve Superman movies? Yes, they are somewhat cheesy, but honestly, watching the first one from 1978 again, it has less jokes and it took itself more seriously than the new one. Oh, I agree. The first Superman movie from 78, Richard Donner wanted that to feel like a real movie. Because keep in mind, in the late 70s, no one took comic book movies serious. These were movies made for children and troglodytes. And what they did with that was they transcended that film into being more than just some comic book movie, into feeling like a real movie. And that's why they cast actors with gravitas like Marlon Brando to get more appeal from an older demographic that might take the movie more serious and give it more nuance or more substance. So I completely agree with you. Like the first Superman movie, like if I watched that in the late 70s, I would be blown away by it. So, and I think it's because of that movie taking itself so serious, that's why comic book movies even existed later on. And without it, I don't know where we would be. But then keep in mind, throughout the 80s, they made a lot of shitty sequels that got cheaper and worse as they continued on. And then I think ultimately what saved it's kind of weird. At the end of every decade, we sort of get a new comic book movie that saves the genre. Have you noticed that? Let's just hear me out for a second. In 79, or was it 78, 79, we got the Superman movie, which sort of like gave life to the comic book genre of films, right? And then in the 80s, there was a lot of bad ones. And then in 1989, you got Batman starring Michael Keaton. And that re-energized that comic book genre spark, right? And then throughout the early 90s, you got a lot of shitty comic book movies again. But at the very end, in like 1999, 2000, we'll go with 1998, you got Blade, which a lot of people don't give Blade the credit it deserves, but that basically saved Marvel. Marvel's film studio, Blade saved that. And keep in mind, that was a rated R movie about Blade, and not a very well-known superhero or comic book character. And also a year before that, you got movies like Spawn, which almost ruined the comic book genre. So it's like at the end of every decade or every 10 years, you get that saving grace of a comic book movie that just reinvigorates the comic book genre. So let's all take a moment of silence and appreciate Blade for what it was and what it did. And now that moment of silence has ended. Okay, let's keep going. All right, let's go to the next one here. And the next one comes from Alex Carr, who says, Superman, The Quest for Peace is an abomination against humanity, but John Cryer as Lenny is hilarious. I watched that movie in preparation for joining a Hilariosity review back in 2015, and I think that was the second time I had ever watched Superman Quest for Peace, and I just remember Nuclear Man in that movie wearing Dollar Tree press-on fingernails that were spray-painted silver. And I just thought to myself, this was a real movie that they released in the theater. All right, the next one comes from... it's a bad movie, though. Patrice Chaswick. How's it going, Patrice? How's this idea? Snyder cut ends DCU, Darkseid wins, and Superman rules the Earth like after the credits. Gunn resets the DCU, come 10 years later, bring back Darkseid, and bring him back and have Cornsweat versus Cavill, mix villains and heroes from both. I think that sounds like a cool idea, but I don't know if it could be a realistic idea. And I think what DC is trying to do now is sort of just get rid of the Snyderverse of things. And I think to have everything lead back to that exact thing that they're trying to get rid of now might be self-detrimental. Because if you reintroduce that, then it's like people won't let it go again, and now you can never start from scratch. But I do agree that Darkseid should come back in some capacity at some point, because you do need him in the new DCU. But here's my thing. I think going into the next Superman movie, they need to start building up Darkseid. Or not Darkseid, I'm sorry. Doomsday. What am I saying right now? Who am I talking about? Yes, I'm sorry. Okay. Doomsday. I'm thinking Avengers for a second. I got really conflicted mentally. Anyway, they need to have a new version of Doomsday come back for Superman to go up against. And I'm hoping that maybe they can build that up in the next Superman sequel to some degree. I think there's a lot you can do with that. And there has been rumors and speculation that Brainiac will be the next main foe that Superman goes up against, but he's not even quite done with Lex Luthor yet. So I'm sure at some point we'll see Doomsday in a Superman movie. Oh, and Zod. Oh, by the way, here's my thing on Zod. So you had Bradley Cooper playing Jor-El in the new Superman movie, and the whole plot of Jor-El's video message being encrypted in the second half of it. And because keep in mind, when it comes to that video message from Jor-El in the new Superman movie, the first half is be a good man, son, do the right thing, save humanity. And then the second half is pillage and plunder humanity and destroy everything. It just doesn't even make sense unless his dad was bipolar. And I'm not buying that encrypted message has any accuracy or validity to it. I'm sorry. This all comes from Lex Luthor, and the only backup that we got in giving that any accreditation was there's a line from Mr. Terrific that says, 30 of the world's video experts looked at it and they all agreed that was accurate. And it's so we're just leaving it there. 30 people who don't even understand Kryptonian language are all agreeing that that's what the message is translated to. Okay. Come on. That feels so forced. It's you're telling me Lex Luthor could not have used AI to manipulate that in any way, form, or fashion. But the other flip side of that is, besides that being sort of a dumb plot point, was what if that isn't Jor-El? What if that is Zod? What if that's actually Zod in the video? There's a thought. I don't know. That would make more sense to me. But anyway, who cares? Let's go to the next one. And the next question comes from Night King 01. And by the way, Patrice Chaswick, thanks for the question, man. You got there's a little dingly right here. I got a whole shoebox full of them. Dingly ones too. There, let's take that off the camera. There we go. All right. If you could see what I'm seeing right now, it's out. Let me show you what I'm looking at right now. I need you guys to see this. This is my view of you right here. Just look at all this party popper shit all over it's outrageous. Okay, let's go to the next one here. And the next one comes from Night King 01. Night King 01 says, I know I'm late, but I have to say this about Happy Gilmore 2. If there is one thing I can say about this film, it is that it just felt fake. I can't describe it any other way. It didn't feel real. Also, Benny Safdie is in this as the villain, that's all. Yeah, you're right. That was Benny Safdie. Okay, I didn't even realize that until you just said that. That makes sense now. Yeah, no, it feels very artificial. And I did talk about this earlier on in the live stream. I said the look of the movie. Now, this was a digital film, which isn't news. Everything's shot with digital now, unless you're Christopher Nolan. But man, it just looks so overly saturated, but yet it looks gloomy. And I don't like the way the movie looks. It literally like makes me feel uneasy how bad Happy Gilmore 2 looks. And hear me out for a second. Please don't get mad at me. Don't get mad at me. I like you guys, okay? It's not personal. But that's sort of the way I felt about the new Superman movie at times. It feels so artificial and digital that there's no sense of humanity behind it. Like, can't we just shoot something outside in a downtown area or on a golf course that doesn't feel artificial? I think it was the saturation, and it was just the look of the movie that was ugly. Like in Happy Gilmore, there's like all these random handheld shots that look really bad. And if you go back and watch the original movie, it almost feels like it has more contrast and more detail than this new version does that looks very glossy. Like if you look at people in Happy Gilmore 2, and maybe it's just the way films are looking where they want everyone to look glossy and like they have a Snapchat filter on them to make them look prettier than they are because seeing flaws in a movie is like detrimental to people's mental health. But they look so fucking glossy that they look like they're made out of wax. And then the highlights in the movie are so overblown and blown out to where like, it's like, where are we at? Is this a real location? So I do get what you're saying. It's this weird artificial glossiness that just takes you out of it. And I think that's what it is. Let me know if you guys agree with that or disagree, or did you notice that? Superman felt like it was set on some AI Earth. It did. It absolutely did. It did not feel like people actually live here. Dustin Rich says, have you ever played Hide the Soul? No, I have not, but I did watch Child's Play a couple months ago, and I quite enjoyed it. All right, the next one comes from DJ Run, who says, hey, Johnny Boy, do you miss everything about your old office job? Do you keep in contact with anyone at that job? So I didn't work in an office. I was a project manager for an insurance restoration company. So 90% of the time I worked from home in my underwear, and the other time I went into an office occasionally for a couple meetings that were just a blatant waste of time that could have been summed up with an email, and you could have read 3 bullet points and that would have been all you needed. But for some odd reason, people are still of the mindset that we have to look at each other face to face, even though no one actually wants to be there. But that's what you have to do every Thursday. But the other time that I would spend with that job was I was going around to different job sites to talk to subcontractors and customers and clients and do things like that. So I would have like a travel day where I would cruise around and do that. So I didn't really work in an office. Now, if you're talking about my old office job, yes, I worked in a cubicle once for a couple years. And every day that I went into that job, just the smell of the office, you know what it smelled like? It smelled like someone took a shit in the bathroom, but then sprayed Febreze all around the area to cover up and mask the scent. So deep down inside, you'd always smell crap, but then there was like this weird artificial freshness on top of it. That's what I always connect with that office job. But I worked in a small cubicle, and I would talk on the phone all day. Just all day I would talk on the phone to people who did not want to talk to me. And I remember looking out the window of that office job, and I remember one day I saw these dudes wearing like Daisy Duke shorts with cut off tank tops on outside mowing the grass and landscaping. And I thought to myself, I would much rather be doing what they're doing right now than what I'm doing right now, because at least they're outside in the fresh air and they don't smell this guy who sits behind me named Gerald, who always just, I'm telling you, man, he had the worst body odor I've ever smelled in my entire life, and it would resonate into my cubicle. But anyway, I remember thinking that, and I remember immediately telling myself after that, once I quit the next day, that I could never do this again, and nor have I. So, there's that. All right, let's go to the next one here. Laughing Stock Media says, there was one guy in my college who never showered, and his dorm room smelled like a locker room full of rotten bologna. You could smell it every time you walked down the hall. Yeah, there's nothing worse than bad BO, man. I remember, speaking of bad BO, and we'll connect this with movies. And by the way, thanks to all 280 people watching right now. Thank you guys so much for listening to me talk about body odor. Thank you guys so much for that. It does mean a lot. But what I wanted to say about body odor is I remember watching Avengers Endgame, right? Big, epic spectacle. You want to watch the movie and get immersed into it. You're hyped to see this shit, right? And then, Tony Stark dies. But anyway, during the entire run of that film, the guy beside me had the worst gingivitis breath I've ever smelled. And he was breathing through his mouth the entire movie. And I get it. If you can't help it, I understand that. But damn it. It ruined the movie for me in a small way. Because the whole time I'm leaning away like this. And I'm just trying not to smell them. And I had a bucket of popcorn in front of me that I was trying to use as an air freshener. I was like, if I keep this bucket of popcorn as close to my nostrils as possible, I won't be able to smell him. So that was another fond movie-going memory that I have that I wanted to share with you guys. So there's that. And I'll be honest with you, when COVID happened, I hated it. I hated staying inside, and I still hate the fact that Walmart's closed at 11 o'clock, because Walmart to me was pure escapism, because I don't like society. So being able to go into a Walmart at 2 o'clock in the morning and do my shopping and make videos, that was a beautiful experience. We don't have that anymore. But anyway, one of the best things about COVID, though, the only one big benefit that we got was as much as I hated it, people had to wear masks and you couldn't smell their breath. All right. So anyway, let's go to the next question. And the next one comes from, I don't know how we got off on that topic. Here we go. DJ Run says, can you say the following in a Morgan Freeman voice? Let me take a drink of my delicious caffeinated beverage. I'll try to say this. Hang on. I gotta have a little phlegm in my throat to do a good Morgan Freeman impression, and I just don't have it right now. Let me start off with this. My name is Morgan Freeman. Either you have an affair, or they're just very shy. I don't know. I'm sorry. That's all I got. Night King 01 says, don't leave those rose-tinted glasses over your eyes. Mortal Kombat 1995 is bad. You watch your fucking mouth when you talk about Mortal Kombat 1995, Night King 01. Those are fighting words. But let's continue the question. I thought it was very good until I rewatched it a few weeks ago. Nothing about it holds up. It looks ugly. It's shot like a music video. Only good things are the reshot fights. You know what? Everything you just said is fair. It does sort of look like a music video, but keep in mind, it's from the director of the Resident Evil movies, which all look like music videos. And also keep in mind, he got his start by directing, guess what? Music videos. But I will say this about the original Mortal Kombat. The score to that movie is top-notch and phenomenal. You had metal music, you had rock music. It's badass. And when you go back and watch the fight scenes, and keep in mind, it is a movie called Mortal Kombat, so the fight scenes all do hold up, and I quite enjoy them. But also keep in mind, this is a movie from 1995. It got it right. If you like the Mortal Kombat games, I think you would like the Mortal Kombat movie in 1995. And everyone I knew did. I'm not saying it's peak cinema by any means. All I'm saying is, when it comes to the video game genre of movies, it's one of those that doesn't bastardize the source material that it comes from. And it gives you kind of what you want to see. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying it looks like a Christopher Nolan movie or something. No. But it does have like a vividness to it. I think it's a lot of fun. So there's that. All right, let's go to the next one here. Larry Chu says Mortal Kombat 95 is awesome. So there's that. Okay, let's go to the next one here. And the next one comes from J Forever King says, John, thanks for not becoming a grifter who makes 30 videos a week ranting about Brie Larson and Kathleen Kennedy. You know, thank you for that comment. The truth is, I ultimately just don't personally give a shit enough to pretend like I give a shit about certain things that I don't give a shit about. Like, if I make a rant video, it has to really hit home with me. And I just don't care about a lot of things that most people rant about on the internet. That's just the truth. That's just me. And I'd like to make videos about things I want to talk about, not things that I feel like I have to succumb to appease a small demographic of my audience. I don't know. But thanks for that, man. But I will say Kathleen Kennedy has made some very detrimental mistakes throughout the years, and I'm talking about Star Wars most specifically. But I don't have the energy to do it. I don't know. Bryce Tiffany back again, and thank you for the question, Bryce Tiffany. Oops, never mind, you found it. Also, was watching one of your old Blu-ray collection videos from 2022. And I have to ask, have you organized your collection yet? If not, how do you know? Because that is driving my OCD crazy. Excuse me. I have not organized my Blu-ray collection. Well, okay, here. Technically, I sort of have. So, by the way, thanks for the question. So, when it comes to my Blu-ray collection back there, these are all the shelves my Blu-rays are on, where all the blue lights shine. And I like to say, if you're seeing a blue light emanate, there's probably a Blu-ray there. So there it is. So right here on these top shelves here, I have all my 4K movies, and then I also have all my 4K movies on these top two shelves. Underneath those shelves are all my normal Blu-ray movies, and then behind my sofa back here, I have a lot of like shitty movies I'll probably never watch again, or box sets that are just too big and take up too much real estate, and I hide those on my other shelf back here. And then right here on this shelf, these bottom two rows right here are all of my steel books. So I put all the steel books on those two bottom shelves. So the way I catalog a majority of my movies is I put a lot of my favorite movies sort of on the top in no specific order, but I do keep all the like MCU movies together and all the Star Wars movies together and stuff like that. But outside of that, no, I don't alphabetize them. I don't organize them, because here's my logic on that. Sometimes when I'm going through my movie collection, I don't want to know where everything is. I want to surprise myself. I just want to go through it and go, oh, I forgot I had that movie. Maybe I want to watch that today. So by not organizing your movies, it's sort of like a gift you give yourself. So try it out sometime. That I'm just too lazy to organize them. That's the truth. Let's all be honest here. But thank you for the question. Caleb says, John, when you eat those good gummies, how much do you take? What's a story of when you taken so much? Thanks for your time, brother man. Well, I don't know what you're talking about, but if I were to do something like that, I would think 25 milligrams is more than sufficient. I'd also recommend it when you go to see a movie, because it'll make it feel like you're watching, even if it's an old movie or a new movie, you'll watch it in a different way that you would typically never watch it. And that's my recommendation to you. But there are a few times where you get so self-aware to where it feels like you're watching yourself from a third-person perspective, and it does kind of freak you out a little bit. So, yeah, there's that. Damn5271 says, oh, hi, John. Did you end up going to the WWE event in Ohio? I did, man. I did. I'll show you what I'm talking about here. So there's a lot. There's just so much of this shit dangling around right now. So a month or two ago, I did go to the WWE Raw event in Columbus, Ohio. And it was a good time. I enjoy watching wrestling live. I think it's really fun. It's like watching a live action movie with stunt work, and it's almost like a Shakespearean play in a way, if you will. But I did go. I did make a short Instagram reel about it. I'll show it to you if you want to see it. Here it is. So I did go to WWE Raw. And by the way, if you guys don't follow me on Instagram, if you guys want to, follow the Flick Pick. I do post a lot of fun stuff over there, some Instagram reels, some other fun stuff. So this is the video I made of WWE live a few weeks ago. Look at that amazing muscle definition of Jade Cargill. But yeah, I took my wife with me. There's Braun Breaker jumping off into the crowd. There's Penta getting speared. So yeah, it was definitely a fun time. Really enjoyed it. And I'd like to go to more WWE. There's a hot dog I got that looked utterly disgusting. So yeah, it was a good time. There I am, eating, out of sync, of course. So yeah, man, it was an awesome time. But yeah, if you want to follow me on Instagram, the Flick Pick, I think the link is down below. There's Cody Rhodes. Yeah, it was fun. Quite enjoyed it. And I will say this about pro wrestling. Watching it live and in person, it looks way more violent than sometimes it looks like on TV. Like you can actually, it looks a bit more dangerous at times. That or it looks more artificial and overly choreographed. It's one or the two, but either way, it's still a good time. All right. Yeah, here's a picture of me and my wife at the event right there. So I had a very large alcoholic beverage. And after two of those, I think I had 2 or 3 of these during the course of the night, and let's just say during the main event, I was pretty fucked up. So anyway, there's that. All right, let's go to the next one here, and the next one comes from. The next one comes from Harmonical Vengeance, who says, "Did you see Stuckman at Comic-Con?" I did see someone post a clip of his panel at Comic-Con, and he was talking about the movie theater experience, I think. I just saw a quick clip, so I did see that on Instagram from somebody. Bryce Tiffany says, also, thoughts on the Bravia 8 TV as well. I have a Bravia 8 in the other room. And I think it's phenomenal. I will say I watch my Bravia 8 LED TV more than I watch my OLED TV. And not to say that I think OLED looks great. I think OLED looks phenomenal when it comes to color contrast and deep, rich blacks that LED will never compete with it. But also, sometimes when you just want to watch something and it's bright and it's vivid and you want some more sharpness to it, I think the Sony Bravia looks beautiful. I really do. Now, do you have an OLED or LED? Either one. I think Sony makes great TVs. I do. I think they make beautiful TVs. And I'll be honest with you. After buying my last LG TV, I have an LG 83-inch C2 television. And when it's going, it looks great. It's beautiful. But the power supply went out, I don't know, 2 months after. No, I'm sorry. The power supply went out 2 days after the warranty ended. Now, thankfully, I bought the extended warranty from Costco, but that is the second LG TV that I've had that broke literally within a week after the warranty expired. And they really pissed me off as a company. And I think I'm done buying LG products for a very long time, unless, of course, they want to sponsor me. And that would be a different situation, of course. But yeah, man, the last LG TV I bought, the C2, it looks good, but like I'm just like, is this going to break in another year? What's going to break on this TV? Like, I don't know what it is. I would put more faith into a Sony TV than I would an LG TV at this point. All right, the next one comes from Ed said, I'm reading the comments here. Fetishizing men being intimidating, don't get weird. What is this from? What is this argument in the comment section about? So men intimidate you. What are you guys talking about over here? He was not intimidating. He was right. What do you look for in a villain that... What are you guys talking about? Are we talking about toxic male masculinity? What are you talking about? I don't know. Let me know. I'd love to chime in. I'd love to give you my thoughts. But if it's toxic male masculinity, absolutely. I stand by it. Let's go to the next one here. And the next one comes from... I'm just kidding. Take a joke. Dr. Sick Evil says, I thought Eddington was pretty cool. Didn't y'all talk about that already? It might be my favorite Ari Aster movie. It manages to be a movie with a political opinion and not outright be super annoyingly pandering about it. There are a few good movies throughout the course of cinema that do have political opinions without beating you over the head with it. And my favorite political opinion in a movie is where it shows you both sides of the argument and it leaves it up to you as the audience to decide which route you want to take. I enjoy that. Now, I have not seen Eddington yet. I haven't seen it. I think Ari Aster movies are hit or miss at best, but I have not seen Eddington yet. I'd like to check it out, but I don't know if I'm going to make it to the theater to watch the movie, but I would maybe eventually watch it. The Riddler in Batman was toxic male masculinity. Are you talking about Jim Carrey? Because wearing spandex pants says otherwise. Speaking of toxic male masculinity, I Know What You Did Last Summer was the worst film I've ever seen in years. I didn't really get any toxic male masculinity vibes from I Know What You Did Last Summer. The only vibes I got was, once again, this looks like a really bad, cheap movie, even though I know they're using really expensive digital cameras. But why does this look so bad and cheap? It looks like it was made for straight to DVD. It looks like a movie made for straight to DVD. That's sort of what the new Happy Gilmore movie looks like. It looks like a movie made for DVD. Did you like Beau is Afraid? How do I answer this? I think it's a movie that you should watch once, but it's a movie I think I can only watch once. I think as far as a film goes, that showcasing the internal dilemma of anxiety and giving you a panic attack for 2 hours as you watch a movie, I thought that worked, but by the end of the movie, it was just exhausting, and I was like, this could have been summed up in 35 minutes. So in that sense, I liked it, but it's not what I would say is a movie-going experience that I need or crave when it comes to cinema. All right, let's go to the next one here. And the next one comes from Steven, who says, I'm 35 and my back hurts. Well, now your fingers are going to hurt because you just pulled landscaping duty. Anyway, what can I do to improve my posture, strength, and physical health? Well, I'll tell you this. As a guy who has extreme sciatica, and sometimes when I sneeze, I literally need to lay down for 10 minutes, you got to work out your core and stretch. The reason that your back hurts is because you're babying it too much, and I did that for a long time. When I was working out, there was a day when I was in the gym. And keep in mind, I used to be a strong dude in the gym. I was pressing, and look at these biceps. I still got it. There was a day I was pressing some like 85-pound dumbbells, doing shoulder presses, which is completely unnecessary. And once again, that might be my toxic male masculinity pouring through. But I was just doing it to see if I could. And when I went to sit one of those dumbbells down, I twisted my lower back in just the weirdest way possible, where I pinched a nerve. And ever since then, I've had severe sciatica. So my best advice to you is stretch and work on your core muscles, just strengthen it. And that way your lower back, anytime that it's in a vulnerable situation, it doesn't take all the blunt force. That way the rest of your body can keep up with it. That's what I learned to do, and it took me a long time to get there. So, or take a lot of ibuprofen. There you go. So yeah, now we're talking about back-related issues. The movie guy says, hey, John, is Stifler a relatable character? Hey, fuckface. In a way, I did relate to the character Stifler in the American Pie movies, and definitely throughout high school and middle school, I related to the character. But keep in mind, the thing I like about Stifler, and the thing I like about characters like that is, he is an asshole, but he has a heart of gold. He's their asshole, and he's a very protective friend, right? So I liked those traits about the character Stifler, but he was sort of a douchebag, so I can relate to it, kind of, yeah. Beatrice Chaswick says, me and my wife watched Happy Gilmore 2 last night. We both had some chuckles, although a bit grim. My wife said she didn't mind it. I asked her, will you ever watch it again? And she paused and then said, no. And that's exactly what Happy Gilmore 2 is. It's much like all the digital content we're inundated with. It's just digital content that you will never watch again. It's like a TikTok video. Oh, that was mildly interesting and thought-provoking as I sit here and take a crap, but once you wipe your ass and you get up, you're never going to remember that video again or ever go back and rewatch it. So that's what Happy Gilmore 2 is. It's the kind of cinematic entertainment that you watch on the toilet. But thank you for the question. And thanks, Patrice, once again. And here's a party popper for you. I'm going to pop it. You know what? I'm going to get back here and pop it. I'm going to pop it Happy Gilmore style. And I forgot that Galactus was over. I almost tripped over my Galactus. Okay, let's go to the next one here. Dr. Sick Evil, back again, says, I know you don't like politics in movies. I don't mind politics in movies. I just don't like when movies inundate their audience with their politics consistently throughout. You know, I just think, I think that's too much. But anyway, here it goes. I know you don't like politics in movies, but this one is well made. It brings up a lot of good questions, and it's funny. Also scary because there's a lingering subplot about AI data farms. Whoever hated Eddington probably watches too much Critical Drinker. Yeah, man. You know, funny story. I've never watched a full episode of Critical Drinker. I just never have. I really haven't. I've watched like a few clips, but I've never watched a full episode.
And then you have our characters here, and they're doing this, and this is stupid.
You're like, I don't know, man. Maybe it's the accent. I just feels like someone's scratching my fucking brain when I hear it. But those are my just quick thoughts. Sal says, what's your favorite genre and decade for music? Dude, that's a great question. You know, every genre had a different flavor to it, but I'll tell you this. Whenever I'm outside doing yard work or in my car, typically 80s music always puts me in a good mood. Because 80s music's just like dudes going, get up and go and work out and cover yourself in baby oil. You know, it's just like, how can that not be motivating to you? That's just feel-good music. So I like it. But then again, the flip side of that is I like early 2000s screamo music. I like some pop music every once in a while. I like metal music from like the 80s and the 90s, or like death metal music. So it really depends. But ultimately, I would say like 80s music is like my go-to. I just think something about it, just that's the vibe and the universe I would like to live in. All right, let's go to the next one here. Oh, man, you guys are killing it with the questions. Let me talk a little quicker here. Daddy Needs to Chill says he plays a drunk guy cringy. Critical Drinker has no chin. You notice that? I guess I didn't. I never noticed that. He sounds like, well, his whole shtick is he's pretending to be drunk, so I get it. I just can't, like, it hurts my head. It hurts my ears to listen to it for more than like 20 seconds is all I'm saying. Dustin Rich says, your Scottish accent is spot on. Well, thank you, Dustin. And I know you're lying to me to make me feel better about myself, but that's okay. I can live with it. What kind of car do you drive? I have a Toyota CHR. It's a very small, compact SUV. But at the time, it was like the most expensive car I could afford, so that's what I bought. But if you watch some of my flick trip videos, you'll see it. I show it off a few times. So go watch some of my flick trip videos, and you can ride along with me shotgun style in the car. Claudia Rogajon says, it's just Mr. Plankett. Yeah, rather than be this crazy old kooky man, he's now a drunk guy. I get the shtick. And listen, I get it, man. I'm a dude, and I want you guys to know this about me and YouTube videos. When I make, like, going back to, like, 2015 version of me, that I sort of had a shtick myself. You know, I kind of up the ante a little bit with my shtick. But it is my real personality. I'm just leveling it up by 10,000%. I'm giving you the superhero persona version of it. So I get it having a shtick, but I've just never really watched his videos. That's the truth. It's like, I just assume when he makes a video, it's like, oh, you didn't like the movie. Got it. like that's the outcome. All right, the next one comes from here we go. Night King 01 back again says, John, I know I shouldn't have laughed at the scene on the bridge, but when Ben Grimm tried to pick up the ring and he couldn't, I was laughing because of the terrible suit and Michael Chiklis acting and the voice that he's doing. Oh yeah, the Thing in the 2005-2007 Fantastic movie. Now listen, I will always respect practical effects. I really will. But there's a time and a place, and and when you have Michael Chiklis, who's like this 5'7" dude wearing platforms that makes him now 6 foot tall, like a normal average person, and he's wearing that clunky ass rubber looking suit, I get it. I can almost respect it, but I can't because it's almost distracting, and I don't even think you could wipe your own ass with the mobility that this suit is giving you. So for me, when it comes to the new Fantastic Four film, I think the CGI version, first and foremost, that interpretation of Ben Grimm, the Thing, it looks like the iconic comic book accurate version. But I do agree with you. I didn't necessarily laugh that he couldn't pick up the ring that his wife left. I thought that was just another like slap in the face that he's now disfigured and he can't even pick up small items. But then again, it's just like, if you don't even have the tactile function to pick up this ring, how can I like assume you're going to be able to save the day at any point in this movie? If you can't grip something, how can you do anything? So I don't know. But I got the sentiment that it wanted to have, but it was just such a cheesy movie, it's hard to see through it. Robert Giacenta says, impression of Sean C. Phillips, Sean Chandler, and John Campio walking into a strip club. Okay, here's my impression of Sean C. Phillips. Hey guys, we're going to the strip club today. It's 1995 and I want to see some boobies. And then here's Sean Chandler. And for our next dancer, well, here's what I want to say, guys. Is that my Sean impression? Here's my ranking of all the strippers that I saw today. That's my Sean Chandler impression. There you go. And my John Campio impression would be this. And for our next main stripper, now first let me preface this. Ann and I are going to buy an RV and live in it for the rest of our lives. And we're going to travel around the country and we're going to see all of you. But first, let me get this off my chest. This pissant, this nobody. Now let me go to my next main topic. I guess that's all I got. That's all I got, man. I don't know. All right, here we go. But I respect all of them. So, all right. Junior says, is your hairline receding? I don't know, man. You know, I don't think so. The truth be told, I've had the same hairline since I started YouTube in 2010, and I can prove it to you. Just go watch one of my earlier videos. This shit is the same. If anything, I think it's gotten better over the years. But I've had the same hairline forever. So I don't think it is. And if it is, I'm 38 years old, so be it. And if I have this much hair at 40, I'm happy. I'm content. All right. So I don't think it is, but thanks for that. All right, we got Connor near. Hey, Connor. Connor's my buddy that I see at screenings. How's it going, buddy? All right, let's go to the next one. And the next one comes from DJ Skittles, who says, have you seen Seven Psychopaths, you badass? I have seen Seven Psychopaths. Psychopaths. Hang on. Yes, I have seen Seven Psychopaths. I do vaguely remember it. It's got, your mother, gorgeous, once told me your eyes, Zool, Christopher Walken. But I have seen it, dude. I don't remember anything about it, though. I did see this. I feel like I watched it on DVD when it originally came out back. This was 2012. Yeah. I think I watched this on like DVD in 2012, but I have not seen it since. GF Hostman says you should grow a mullet. If I could do that and get away with it, I just might. Wing says it's a mature hairline, not a receding one. Hey, I can live with that. I can live with that. Listen. Let's find a flick pick video from 2010, shall we? Oh my. Okay, you guys ready for this shit? Hang on. And thanks to all 280 of you guys still sticking around here. So thank you guys for hanging out with me. I do appreciate it. Let's watch this. Here I am. 2010. That is me. I mean, I don't know. It kind of looks the same, I guess. I mean, maybe it was a little more full right there in the center, just slightly. But overall, I think it's about the same. You know? So there's that. Look at that. Let's. Can I listen to this? I have not listened to this in a long time.
You know, I don't live beside an ocean, but folks, this is probably Michael Bay's best film, and that's not saying much, but
yeah. So anyway, there's that. Let's get rid of that immediately. So thank you for that. Hey, I think I've aged pretty gracefully, if you ask me. Okay, I'm putting it out there. John, cut your hair and get the Travis Bickle mohawk. One day, when I completely have a midlife crisis and I want to become a vigilante and take down the corrupt, I will shave my head into a mohawk. I absolutely will. How old was I in that video? I was 23 when I started YouTube. Yeah. John, you got way better looking with age. You know what? I've heard that, so I'll take it. All right, the next one comes from Claudia Rogajon again. You didn't answer the second part of my Superman question, which was, what are your thoughts on Superman 2? Dude, the reason I probably didn't answer that is because I don't remember anything about Superman 2. I don't remember anything about the movie. I probably have seen it once. I don't remember anything about it. So that's why I didn't chime in, man. So I'm sorry. Also, you said Zod was only really ever good in Superman 2. Oh, that's the one with Zod, and he throws the thing, his Superman emblem off his chest in the Fortress of Solitude. Yes, okay, I remember Superman 2. I forgot Zod was in it. Okay, you're right. I have seen it. I vaguely remember it. And then you had the one big guy that had the beard. That's what I remember. Anyway, is when he played Terrence Stamp. Other than that, the Zod has never really been interesting as a character. I didn't like him in Man of Steel either, as he was just a programmed drone with no depth. The new Krypton will be built on your bones, Superman. I liked Zod in Man of Steel. I don't think he was that complex of a character, but yeah, he was genetically engineered as a general, and his duty was to protect Krypton. So, yeah, I get what you're saying. Night King 01 says, no, no, no. They cannot bring Doomsday this early. They did that in Batman v Superman. They need to wait. Bring in Brainiac first, or Mongol. No more Zod, though. He can stay in the Phantom Zone for now. Overused in movies. Same with Joker for Batman. Hold off. I agree. But what I was saying, though, when it comes to Doomsday is lean into designing him and bringing this threat to fruition. So Brainiac could possibly do that. And then in like the next Superman movie, you could bring in Doomsday. But ultimately, I do feel like Doomsday, rather than being in a solo Superman movie, whenever they finally do get like a Justice League movie or start interconnecting some of these DCU characters, I feel like Doomsday would be a good threat for them at that point. I feel like if you had a couple heroes in your story, having Doomsday as a threat for them to go up against would be interesting. So I'm with you. Save it for a movie or two down the road and lead into it. Just don't shit it out like you did in Batman v Superman. It's the third act of the movie. Let's just introduce the biggest foe Superman has to go up against. But hey, it's okay because Batman and Wonder Woman are here too. I get it. Okay, the next one comes from Take My Strong Hand, who says, will your weapon in the apocalypse be a lube sock with soda cans in it? Oh, I'm sorry, you said a tube sock, but then again, what's the difference? Yes, from the movie The Boys, I'm sorry, Bad Boys, but not the Bad Boys with Martin Lawrence, the Bad Boys with Sean Penn. If you've never seen that, go check it out. The first 15 minutes of Man of Steel is the best part. Dude, I will say this. They definitely give you some good backstory on Krypton in the first 15 minutes of Man of Steel. And the music by Hans Zimmer in those first 15 minutes is phenomenal. Do you even lift, bro? Not as much as I should, I'll tell you that. I'm getting a little bit of a gusher's belly in the middle. I'll just be honest with you. It catches up the older you get. I think my weapon in the apocalypse would be a chainsaw, though. I don't think there's a more intimidating sound that would scare off people in the apocalypse than having a chainsaw. Like, if you hear a chainsaw, that is not a direction that you run towards. So that's what I'm planning on doing. All right, Flick Pick is God. Well, thank you. See, that's what my channel should have been called. Anyway, why does everyone hate Henry Cavill's Superman now? I don't think anyone hates it. If anything, I think if anything, there's a resurgence of people who love it. It's kind of weird, isn't it? Like, if you go back to 2013, everyone wanted a more comic book, lighter, more vivid, saturated version of Superman. And I almost feel like this version of Superman that we just got would have been more well received back in 2013. It's kind of weird that way. And then now in 2025, everyone's like, nah, I want that Man of Steel version now. It's kind of a weird flip, isn't it? Or maybe we just don't know what we want. All right, the next one comes from Night King 01, who says, random thought, but haven't you always questioned Bruce's moral code in Batman Begins after he refuses to kill the prisoner, but then proceeds to kill about 30 ninjas by proxy when he lights the temple on fire, possibly killing the prisoner as well? Well, yes, but you have to understand, he's a symbol. And sometimes a symbol is bigger than the actual consequences of what happens, okay? So he said no, and that's all you need to know. If people died after that, well, so be it. I'm sure, well, everyone in on it was now guilty by association. I'm sure that prisoner was fine. He's completely fine. But yeah, I agree. Kind of a hypocrite. Or here's a thought. The reason Bruce Wayne doesn't kill that guy who literally they say he killed his neighbors and took their farmland or something. And Bruce Wayne's like, I'm not an executioner. This man deserves to be tried. Okay, that's fine. Why don't we have a small trial for him, then find him guilty, and then you can decapitate him with your ninja sword, Bruce Wayne? How about we do that? True justice is walking up behind someone and stabbing them in the back. That is true justice. Take My Hand says, will you... Oh, shit. Here we go. Let's go to this one. Night King 01. I'll say this. Mortal Kombat is obviously a homage parody of Enter the Dragon. So when you make a movie adaptation, I expect it to not look cheaper than Enter the Dragon, laugh out loud. Also, what was the movie before those reshoots? Scorpion and Reptile were reshoots. I have no clue. I don't know, man. It probably wasn't as good, but we did get reshoots, and thus it made the movie better. And do those reshoots feel completely tacked in? Yes, they do. I think originally, you know what it is? I think Mortal Kombat originally, the budget was so low that they couldn't afford to do those scenes, and then they later got more money. I think that's what happened. So I'm not going to blame the movie. I'm going to blame the studio system for not giving the original Mortal Kombat the budget is so rightfully deserved. All right, Tyler says, here's almost $2. I'm doing my part. Well, thanks, Tyler. I'll take any support you can offer. So thank you for that. It does keep the lights on here in the Flick Cave, and it does allow me to do more live shows. So thank you so much for that, man. Just watch. You know, really, at the end of the day, just watch. That's all I need. And if you want to, give the video a like. That really helps the algorithm. If you want to stick it to Google, that corporate conglomerate that's stealing all of your info, give this video a like. That'll show them who's boss. Daddy Needs to Chill says, do you hate the Batman the more you watch it? I don't hate it. There's just a lot of stuff that I feel like it skip right over when it comes to the Batman. And really the one scene I cannot watch, it's like a nail scratching my brain, is when Batman goes to Arkham, and there's that interrogation scene between the Riddler and Batman where the Riddler starts singing Santa Maria. I fast forward right through it. Nope, not doing it, not watching it. But I still like the movie quite a bit. But I'll tell you this, the way I rewatch the Batman these days, if I do go rewatch it, I typically make it my go-to-bed movie. And if you don't have a go-to-bed movie, you should definitely get one. But the way I use this is I watch it episodically. So I will watch that movie, since it's almost 3 hours long, I will watch it in hour increments. So I watch it episodically. It's just the best way to watch it. It's kind of how I watch The Hateful Eight by Quentin Tarantino. I watch it episodically. I treat it like binge watching a TV series, except I don't binge watch it. I just watch an hour every night, and then I go to bed. Steven says, hey, John, I can only afford to see one movie. Which one should I choose, Superman or Fantastic Four? Man, that's a loaded question. And Steven, if I knew you, I could probably give you the answer to this. Here's my thing. I get why Superman is the more standout movie of the summer, because there's a lot more that hinges on this movie. And ultimately, Fantastic Four feels like a great superhero movie, and I think it gets it right. And if you like the Fantastic Four, like you really like those characters from the comic books, I think you will be very happy with what you get in the live action adaptation. But on the flip side of that, if you don't give a shit about Fantastic Four and you like Superman, well, maybe go watch the Superman movie. But for me, I much prefer the tone and consistency and the drama and the world building in Fantastic Four. Much, much more. For me, I like the pace of that movie. I think Superman's a little more chaotic. I think it lends itself to a younger demographic. It's like watching a live action cartoon. And hey, there's nothing wrong with that if that's what you want. So which one of those sounds better to you? But I think Superman got more hype because it is the first movie in this new James Gunn DCU. So I think there's just more hype that goes into that, more interest that goes into that. And when it comes to Fantastic Four, we've had nothing but shitty Fantastic Four movies. We've never had a great one. So like, I don't think there's a lot of maybe faith in it. The only thing that gives you faith in it is it's now now Marvel actually has the rights back to the Fantastic Four. So yeah, I don't know. I would recommend Fantastic Four. I just think it's a better movie. Joey Ruiz, Lord of the Rings says, "Hey Johnny, how did you like the new South Park?" I didn't watch the new South Park. I probably have seen one episode of South Park in the last 5 years. I'm not against it. I don't really get out of my way to watch it. Joker Face 501 says, "Some fans are happy that Hogan died because he's racist." I mean, that's pretty sick and sinister at the core of it. I don't know, man. The dude was 70 years old. And the truth is, here's the truth about all of your favorite celebrities and singers and actors and famous people that exist. 99% of them at the core of who they are, if you could have a glimpse or hear a phone conversation of something that they said 10 years ago, everyone has said some shitty shit throughout their lives, myself included. So the hypocrisy of pretending like a private phone call that was released is like no one's ever made a mistake in their life. To me, I think that's like hypocrisy. And I think the majority at the core of who most celebrities are, they're all narcissistic, pretentious assholes who don't really care about you. And they put on a happy face when they go on talk shows to sell the movie. The movie is their product that they're trying to sell to make money. So, I mean, at the core of it, it's not like everyone has a great heart in Hollywood. So, and I don't think Hulk Hogan was that much different. My thing is, he's an icon. And what I do is I separate personal biasness from the artist and the art. And I think Hulk Hogan is kind of the same thing. Like, there's a lot of actors that I know in real life are pieces of shit. But there's a lot of movies that they star in that I quite enjoy. So I think that's my mindset on it. Oh, the Epstein files? I would love Dude, what happened to that? Well, he just killed himself and there's no list that ever existed. And by the way, the prison footage, we're missing a minute of footage that just randomly got deleted. We don't know how that happened, but everything's cool, man. Go on your way. I truly feel, and I feel like the government has done this throughout the history of time. They will test us. They will see how stupid of a story they can give us, and we'll accept it and do nothing about it. And this has happened every decade. It's like, it's not even a good lie. It's just a terrible fabrication. This is the equivalent of a lie that a child would tell to get out of like drinking milk at dinner. Like, this is like, oh, you don't want to go to school today because your stomach hurts? Okay, Billy, sorry, you're still going. It's like, I don't believe anything you're saying. I don't know how we believe this. But anyway, we're getting off into some weird tangents now. I should probably get back to the questions. Cold Spaghetti says, "Hey John, what's your max bench ever? Mine was 295. Also, you got me into listening to Hans Zimmer working out. Been a fan since 2015. Well, thanks for that, man. Yeah, there is no other composer that makes me stronger and more motivated to feel like a badass vigilante when I'm in the gym, looking at myself all pretentious like in the mirror, than Hans Zimmer. And I stand by that. My max bench press of all time was like 325, and I did it for one rep. And the thing is, I just never really try to max out on lifts. My mindset was whatever number I put on the weight or whatever amount of weight I can lift 10 times, that's what I call my max. Like, doing something once, to me, ultimately, it doesn't matter unless you can do it 10 times in a row. That was the way my brain worked when it came to working out. I was like, oh, if I can do this 10 times, then I'll up the weight and do that 10 times. So I would always do, like, when it came to like benching something, like repping it out, I'd throw like, I don't know, I'd probably start like 245, go down to 225, and then keep going down and down and down. But now, to think about going in there and repping out 225 on a bench press, that literally makes my chest explode like a xenomorph's going to burst out of it. Okay, the thought of that sounds like an impossibility at this point in my life. I have never played Final Fantasy, no. Are you excited for the new Tron movie? I'm sort of excited to watch it. It visually looks like a lot of fun. The thing that turns me off about it is Jared Leto. I just can't look at Jared Leto in a movie anymore, and I don't understand why they keep casting him as like this leading role in all of these movies. And I'm sure that they probably shot Tron Ares around the time, or maybe even before, or maybe slightly after Morbius. But after something like Morbius, if I was a studio, I would never cast Jared Leto as my title character in any film, ever. I don't know. All right, let's go to the next one. There's a new Tron movie. Yeah, it comes out this October. The movie guy says, good night, John. Well, good night, movie guy. Thanks for hanging out. And I'll see you next week, hopefully. Sleep tight. All right, the next one comes from Claudia Rogue, John, who says, it's funny that Michael Chiklis was the only actor who was a fan of the Fantastic Four comics in the movies. He actually asked for the practical suit, not the best idea he had. I do think Michael Chiklis is a pretty badass, though, especially as Vic Mackey. Is Vic Mackey the guy in Law and Order or something? I don't know who that is. Or Brooklyn, whatever, the TV show he was in. I don't know what that is. Well, I'm sure he wanted I'm sure when it comes to an actor, rather than just doing voice work as a CGI person, he probably got more money by actually wearing the practical suit and being on set all day. I can only imagine when it comes to like the way SAG pays out actors, actually being on the screen and being in the suit, it might have like increased his paycheck, technically speaking. I don't know. That's just an assumption. I don't know. Robert Giacinta says, do you agree all unruly children should be forced to watch Sleepers? Feel like it's the movie version of Scared Straight. Oh, absolutely. Now, if you guys want to get really dark and morbid for a second here, I think we should all talk about the 1996 movie Sleepers, where it also stars Brad Pitt at one point in the film, but it's based on a true story, and it takes place in the 1960s. It's about a group of these kids that live in Brooklyn. And they're like all nice kids that live in this neighborhood, and they're like typical kids. They get into mischief, and one day what happens is they go to pull off a prank, and they take a guy's hot dog cart, like hot dog vendors that sell hot dogs on the streets in New York City. They take his cart and they push it to the edge of the stairs on a subway station, and they want to act like they're going to push it down the stairs. But what happens is the guy's supposed to run over and grab it and pull it back, and it was like a joke. But the hot dog cart is way too heavy. So they accidentally let go of it, and it comes crashing down the stairs in the subway station, and it kills a guy. What happens then after that is this group of teenage kids are sent to a boys' school. And then from there, it gets very, very dark. It stars Kevin Bacon, who plays one of the guards at this jail. And it's sort of like the Shawshank Redemption, but for children. That's the best way to put it. And some of the unspeakable things that happen to these kids is utterly depressing. And I remember vividly watching this when I was like a kid, like 10 years old. And it is ingrained into my memory. So anyway, Sleepers. Pretty dark, seedy movie. All right, let's go to the next one here. Anyway, that was a weird topic to get on. Alex Carr says, can we all just agree that Amy Adams is the worst Lois Lane? She's bland and super boring. I didn't mind Amy Adams as Lois Lane. I thought she was a pretty good Lois Lane. But I'll tell you this. You want to hear something about the new Superman movie and Lois Lane? Would we like to talk about that for a minute? Let's talk about this newest incarnation of Lois Lane. Now, I did like her. I thought the actress looked the part, and I thought at times she did feel like Lois Lane. But when it comes to her character, if you watch just in the first 10 minutes of that movie, where they're having their mock interview, where they're going back and forth, all Lois Lane does, and keep in mind, I'm talking about their romantic relationship. Lois Lane is sort of a shitty person. All she does is challenge Clark Kent. She just challenges everything he says, everything he does. She shits on all of it. And then at one point, she's like, maybe I'm just not good at relationships. Sorry. And it's like, what are you doing, Lois Lane? She just came across like he was more into her than she was him. And if you're not into Superman, this morally like perfect dude who believes in doing good, though he has like a little boy mentality when it comes to certain things. And by the way, that's my biggest complaint with the new Superman movie is this version of Superman feels like he has the mentality and the foresight of an 18-year-old kid or like a 20-year-old kid in college who just became Superman. And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm just saying like this version of Superman's like 30 years old, not 20 years old. So when I was watching David Cornsweet as Superman, I was like, this reminds me of dudes I knew in college that were 20 years old. So take that how you will. But anyway, that's my take on the news, Lois Lane. But then she ended up kind of saving the day. Sal says, why do you think they cut John Malkovich out of Fantastic Four? My only assumption is maybe that subplot went a little weird and off the rails. And since he does sort of train like chimpanzees, he has an army of like evil monkeys. Maybe people thought that would just be too stupid or weird. I'm not quite sure what it was going to be, but I think it just sort of strayed away from the main focus of the story. And keep in mind, the new Fantastic Four film, it is just like Fantastic Four, Doomsday, the end. And it's very straightforward. And to a certain degree, I appreciate that. So maybe that's why. And I've never thought Red Ghost was all that interesting of a character, but I'm hoping that they do release it with like the bonus features of the 4K Blu-ray or something. Flick Pick as God says, John, what do you think was better, Superman or Fantastic Four? I've already talked about that. For me, I gave Fantastic Four a higher grade. I just think it's objectively the better movie. I do. But that doesn't mean I didn't like Superman. You know, I gave Superman a B-. I gave Fantastic Four a B+. And I think both movies are flawed, and I think both movies have a lot of fun things that do very well. I just think Fantastic Four was, in my I think it was objectively a better movie in terms of storytelling and filmmaking. I think it just looked better. I think the story made more sense. I think the characters were a bit more complex and compelling at times. And it was more consistent with what I was hoping it would be. So, but I would go with Fantastic Four. Just Cash Out says, he didn't say happy. Hey, John, I've been seeing Man of Steel getting hated on more recently by fans of the new Superman and wanted to know your thoughts on it. It's just, you know what it is? We live in a society where you have to like or hate everything. You have to love it or you have to hate it. And I think what it's coming down to is like most people who like the new Superman movie, maybe it's not that they hate Man of Steel, but rather than say, yeah, there's things I don't like about it, they just have to hate it. That's how the internet understands things. Nuance is dead. It doesn't exist. You can't have a conversation. You will not change anyone's mind on the internet. You just won't. So maybe that's why. I don't know. It's kind of the same. But what if, call me crazy, what if you liked both movies for what they do well and still had like nitpicks and understood the flaws of both movies as well? Like, I love Man of Steel. I gave that shit an A-, but it is a very flawed movie. It is. So, and that's coming from a guy who gave it an A-. So I think it's objective thinking is the problem. There's not enough of it. like you have to talk to everyone. You know what it is? I think there was a study done that said like you have to basically talk at a 4th grade reading level on social media for people to comprehend what you're saying. And I think that's where that stems from. Quinn Oodley says, What are you hoping to see in the Smashing Machine? I'm hoping to see The Rock play a character that doesn't just feel like The Rock. And I'm thinking we're going to get it, because this is directed by the Safdie brothers, or one of the Safdie brothers. And I love movies like this, biopic movies. And the thing is, it sort of reminds me of the movie The Wrestler with, oh my God, what's his name? Oh God, what's his name? From The Wrestler, Mickey Rourke. It kind of gives me those vibes. It's like a man, it's a sports movie about a guy going through the trials and dilemmas of life and doubting himself, but it's also based on a true story. And if anything, if there was any actual real life person that The Rock could portray, it's Mark Kerr, who's playing in this new movie, The Smashing Machine, who was an MMA UFC fighter. So I'm looking forward to it, man. Can you smell what the Black Adam is cooking? Superman put me in a good mood. And hey, that's what it was supposed to do. It's a happy, lighthearted movie. It's like a Saturday morning cartoon. It's supposed to put you in a good mood. There's nothing wrong with that. Both movies are different tones of Superman. Absolutely. They are very different tones. I've always preferred a darker tone with more humanity and substance to it. That's just always been my preference in tones when it comes to movies. But also, I like dumb shit. I like Mortal Kombat. So. The next one comes from. Claudia Rogan again says, and by the way, if you guys are YouTube members or if you guys are in the normal chat, I'm doing my best to read the normal chat, so please chime in. I'm trying to read all your questions, and I still have a handful of questions left, so I will say this. If you guys have any pertinent questions you guys want me to talk about or topics to discuss, get those questions in right now, and then I will cover everything that you guys post in the next 1 minute. So if you got a question, type away. All right, let's go. The next question comes from Claudia Rogajon, who says, yes, Vic Mackey is the character Michael Chiklis played in The Shield. Probably the most corrupt cop in any movie or show ever. I would disagree with that. I think Nicolas Cage in Bad Lieutenant might have been more corrupt, and Harvey Keitel might have even been more corrupt. But let's keep going. It is quite literally just a criminal with a badge. One of the best characters in TV, in my opinion. Watch the show. It's amazing. I've heard great things about The Shield. I never got into it, though. Quinn Udi says, do you believe Josh Trank's cut of the Fantastic Four could have been decent? Doctor Doom is still a cheap cosplay. Thing would have still been naked and no fan base. Yeah, I don't know if that movie could have been saved no matter what. Maybe it would have been better than the interpretation that we got from the 2015 movie. And I know it was cut to shit, but if your Fantastic Four still look like this and your Doctor Doom looks like this and your Thing looks like this, then I don't know how good your movie could have been. I just don't know what else could you have said in this movie to make it better? Maybe there was more character development. That's fine, but I don't care about anyone in the movie, so I don't want to know more about them. Quinn says, was it Stuckman's Jehovah Witness trauma that changed him? Well, I think if you grow up in a house like that, where basically emotion doesn't exist, it sterilizes you and your personality, and it does affect you as a person. And it also sort of slows down your progress as a person, in my opinion. So I would say absolutely, it did affect him as a person later on in life. Yeah. I remember the first time I went to his house. He still lived at home with his parents. And I just got this sense that something weird was going on. And he was really he did not introduce me to his parents. His dad sort of waved at me from a distance and said hi, but I didn't talk to them, and basically we avoided them, and and it all made sense later on, a year or two later. But yeah, it was sort of weird, man. L Norma Stintz says, "You're awesome, John. Top 3 all-time movie genres." Top 3 all-time movie genres? Well, that's a hard one. You know, I mean, are we just going to sum it up to like action sci-fi? Because I can't do that. I can't just do that. It's hard for me to define certain movies in just one genre. It really is. But if I had to solidify the main like movie that would represent each genre that I like movies like Shawshank Redemption. I like movies like T2 Judgment Day, Terminator. I like movies like Pulp Fiction, and I like movies like Forrest Gump. You know, and like to me, whatever you want to go back and sort of like look at their subgenres, those are the genres of movies I like. If that makes any sense. So I'll just leave it there. That's the genres I like. Is Forrest Gump a genre? To me, it is. But thank you for the question, Norma Stitz. Or Stitz. Norma Stitz. Sorry. NRML Design says, "Hey, John, what tablet or thoughts on 3-hole Pedro Pascal anxiety that durantly trending? Not sure you're already got asked." What? I'm sorry. Maybe I'm too stupid to comprehend your question here. What are your thoughts on 3 Pedro Pascal anxiety? Pedro Pascal having anxiety and his co-star Vanessa Kirby massaging him during all their interviews. What are my thoughts on that? I get it, man. If he has anxiety, just talking about that, I get it all the time. I have anxiety every day. I think about everything I have to do and you need to do just to survive in life. It's almost overwhelming. I wake up every day in paralyzing anxiety laying in bed. I'm like, how do I move? So I get it. But I'll tell you this. If I was Pedro Pascal and I was an actor and I was like, I had millions of dollars and I didn't even need to act anymore and I could just retire on some beach in the Bahamas, I probably wouldn't have that much anxiety anymore. Just putting it out there. All right, let's go to the next one here. Norma Stitz says, "Does an audience of 10,000 people inflate your ego?" An audience of 10,000 people? Would it inflate my ego? No. The truth is, I'm very self-aware. I know who I am. I do. So if I had an audience of 10,000 people, 50,000 people, or 241 people right now, it's sort of the same thing to me. It really is. So no. I don't think I've ever really had an ego when it comes to YouTube. I really never have. I'm just some dude in his underwear talking about movies. That's it. I am a D- rate YouTuber that exists on the crevices in a very niche demographic on YouTube. That is who I am. And that's fine. I can live with that. Claudia Rojon back again says, "I don't know, John Vic Mackey is pretty good, but he murders an undercover agent in the first episode and he was sent to spy on him and also robs a train in one season just for the heck of it. He gives Nick Cage and Harvey Keitel a run for their money." Yeah, but here's the thing about this character. Did he ever do cocaine and then make some chick blow him as her boyfriend watched? And he said this, "What's the matter? Your father not go to enough school plays or something? Here, come back, watch your girlfriend." Did he ever do that? No, he didn't. And that's why Nicolas Cage is awesome in Bad Lieutenant. I don't think you can top that. All right, let's scroll up over here, see what you guys are saying. Dustin Rich says, "The Smashing Machine was my nickname in high school." That's awesome, man. It was not mine. Flix You Can Feel says, "The Cinemark seats suck, no neck support." Yeah, I only go to theaters with reclining seats anymore. I will not pay for anything else unless I absolutely have to. John has maybe been one of the most consistent YouTubers I've followed over the decade. Did you mean inconsistent? Because I would say I'm one of the most inconsistent YouTubers. Now, listen, I will be there when you need me the most. I will always be there. I promise you, I will never leave you. But I am very, very inconsistent. But just know this. I cannot, and I'm going to stand by this, and I've said it many of times. And if you guys are watching me right now, I need you to know this about me. Okay? I need you to know this about me. When I make a video or we do a live stream, if it's late or it's delayed, that's because I simply could not force a disingenuous thought or reaction on the camera. So I waited until I wanted to make that video and felt like I needed to make that video, because there's nowhere else I would rather be right now than here talking to you. And that's why I don't stick to a firm schedule when it comes to making YouTube videos. To me, this is an art form. This is an expression. And though I do get paid from it, occasionally, and it does is sort of what I pay my bills with, I still don't force these videos unless I want to make them. Because to me, being disingenuous and inauthentic, to me, that is the biggest crime against humanity. And if I change if I come on here and I'm just saying things for the sake of saying it to make digital content, I couldn't look at myself in the mirror any longer after that. And I see a lot of people on YouTube doing that. And I despise them, and it sickens me to my core. It's like battery acid in my mouth. I cannot wait to spit it out. So just know, when you're seeing me, it's because I also want to see you. And I want you to know that, and I stand by it. Now let's go to the next topic before it gets too serious. And sometimes I just get really fucking lazy. I won't lie to you. Sometimes I just get really lazy and life catches up, and I'm like, I don't have the time to do this. But also, the other thing is, and to keep it even more real with you, I feel like sometimes when it comes to movie reviews, for me to process my thoughts on what I really think about it, it takes a day or two. Like, I can crap out a first reaction to what I thought about the movie, but if I'm going to make something that exists in the universe forever, and this is my review of this movie, and in 50 years, this is the review people are going to go back and watch, I want to get it right. I want to say what I really think about it, rather than just crapping out some review for the sake of getting more clicks to be more topical in the first one out there. And I see that all too often. I'm like, I see that you put out your review first, but next week, are you going to agree with everything you just said in this review, or will your opinion change? Because now your video already exists. And to me, I don't know, that's the way my brain works. Maybe I overthink everything and overanalyze it. Okay, Eric Normastitz says, thank you, John, for having integrity, unlike Adam Sandler. Well, dude, Adam Sandler, I will respect that hustle. But then again, you think you get to a point where it's just like, why do you still make this? And hey, if it entertains even the smallest group of people and it's funny and someone laughed at it, maybe that makes him feel good and it's fulfilling to him. And that's cool. I can respect that. It's still better than, what's that really? Jack and Jill. It's still better than Jack and Jill. Let's all agree with that. Billy M says, just popped in, new camera. No, this is the same camera I've been using for the last 5 years. But it does look good today. You know what it is? I took a little extra time with the lighting today, and the background colors. I got the blue and the orange. It's kind of like the perfect tone and the vibe. I wanted to set the vibe just right today. So not a new camera. I just think I messed around with the settings a little bit. So it does look good though, right? Does the video look good to you guys? Let me know. Yeah, Jack and Jill was a sin against humanity. Absolutely. Dustin Rich says, I wish Vanessa Kirby would massage me. Yeah, well, Pedro Pascal is that lucky guy. Sorry to her husband. All right. The next one comes from Night King 01. What are you planning on watching soon? I always hope it will be The Driver, since it's pretty much a running joke at this point. But seriously, what movie are you feeling now? I'm feeling like watching Casino Royale. I could watch Casino Royale right now, man, and feel good about myself. I will eventually watch The Driver, I promise you, man. The next movie I'm going to watch tomorrow. Well, I'll tell you this. I'll tell you the next couple movies I'm watching. Tomorrow at Regal Theaters is Mystery Movie Monday, where they play a movie that you don't know what it's going to be until you get there. There are some rumors that you can read about what it could possibly be. I forget what it is. It's some independent movie. So I'm going to go see a mystery movie tomorrow at Regal Theaters. And then Thursday, I'm going to watch the new horror movie Together, which I'm really looking forward to. And then there was something else coming out this week, I think. Was there another movie coming out this week? What was it? Let me check. Okay, Naked Gun also comes out, man. Oh, gosh. That comes out, yeah, Naked Gun also comes out Thursday. So I got to watch Naked Gun. And then after that, the next week after that is Weapons comes out, which I'm really looking forward to. Oh, God. So, yeah, there's a lot of movies coming out. So that's what I'm watching this week. As far as movies at home I'm watching, I don't know. You know what I started? Oh, you know what I watched? I watched the first season of White Lotus on HBO. Loved it. I think White Lotus is phenomenal. And it was way better than I expected it to be. And it was not what I expected it to be at the same time. So I had a lot of fun with that. We're on season 2. And I can already tell it's not going to be as good as the first season. We just got through episode 1. So I might watch another episode of White Lotus to go to bed to. So that's what I'm watching. Quinn Udi says, what is Sean Chandler like when he's not on camera? He's kind of like he's on camera, just less hyper. He kind of always, you know what it is? Sean, when you're talking to him in real life, he sort of feels like, he kind of seems like he's tired. He always feels like really tired and like he's just kind of listening, you know? I think he uses all of his social energy battery for when he's on camera or on stage. But in person, he's the same guy. He's kind of the same guy. He really is. So that's what he's like. Not as hyper. All right. The next one comes from and Jay Hera 379 just subscribed. Yay, thanks. All right, guys, I think I'm going to wrap up the live show right there. As always, I do want to say, guys, thanks for hanging out. Thanks for talking about movies with me for how I think we've been talking for besides how long have we been talking? Like 3 hours, 3+ hours. Okay. Yeah, I think it's time to wrap up the live show right there. As always, guys, I do want to say thanks for the questions. Thanks for hanging out. If you want to give the video a like, if you had a good time, and if you want to see more, give the video a like. I would appreciate it. And if you haven't watched my Fantastic Four review, well, you can go check that out over on my main channel, The Flick Pick. As always, guys, thank you so much for just looking at my stupid face tonight. I do appreciate it. And I will see you guys next Friday with a brand new live show. But maybe, just maybe, if I'm feeling a little bit frisky midweek, you might just see another random live show this week. Just putting it out there. We'll just do a straight up Q&A live show maybe at the midpoint of this week. So just letting you know, look out for that. As always, thanks for watching. Thanks for hanging out. And I'll see you guys next week. Have a good night. Stay safe. And I hope you guys don't catch a case of the Mondays. I should have my ass kicked for saying something like that. Take care. Bye.